The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines.
It's Tuesday, January 30th, Wednesday, January 31st, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Caribou region on top of the snowy mountains of central British Columbia at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, on the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. We're all over social media, like right now on Periscope TV. Hi, how you doing tonight, Periscope fans? Good to see you. We're also on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're also on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, we have a GoFundMe page going on right now. GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. We are trying to raise money to build a brand new studio to broadcast terrestrially here out of SOR headquarters. We are also building some cool new features on our Patreon account. That's patreon.com/Spaced Out Radio. Now, if you head to our website, you can read up on the Encounter Online dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store or catch great videos from Tim Doyle Doyle's UFO Seekers, and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. We're about 36 days into disclosure, and as great as it is to see officials admitting we do have unknown aircraft flying our friendly skies, there are a plethora of questions that continue to pop up. Like, is the program really still going? Or was it shut down in 2012? What was the role of Lou Elizondo, Hal Puthoff, and more? And how come Robert Bigelow's name keeps popping up, along with former Spaced Out Radio guest John Alexander? Tonight, we have a pair of guests to talk about this. First off, we got Grant Cameron, who I believe is the best researcher and investigator on this topic right now, bar none. The argument stops right there. Then later on, Lorien Fenton in the second half of the show coming in as we have a night of disclosure ahead of us. I expect your questions in the chat rooms as well. Grant Cameron, it's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my fellow Canadian and hockey fan. And, you know, it is more of a pleasure for me, my friend, to actually get to meet you again because I met you in April of 2015 in Vancouver during a disclosure talk with Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Victor Vigiani. But to be able to sit down and have a beer with you, my friend, it's going to be a great time in San Francisco at UFOCon 2018, March 23rd to 25th.
Well, I'd be honored to get together with you again, and thanks for having me on your show. And I hope you're making some headroad in the Canadian radio market, because all my friends who used to listen to Coast are desperate to find something. We've told them about your show, so hopefully you're making some inroads on the Canadian audience.
Well, we are trying, efforting, so to speak. We have 5 stations in BC who are wanting to pick us up. There's one out of Toronto that's very interested, and we're going to try and pave that road because, you know, the one thing that I have heard a lot of from our Canadian listeners is, and reading, is where do we go? Who do we listen to now? So we're trying to get them on over as much as we can because, you know what, even though 70% of our audience is American, the big thing that that we have to teach Canadians, because Canadians, we're kind of slow at when it comes to this stuff, is we have our own.
Yeah, you bet.
So it is good, and it's going to be very exciting over tonight because I know from watching you, and I watch you a lot, not that I'm stalkerish or anything, Grant, I don't want to put it that way, but, I've been watching and following you since the day of the New York Times article and your disclosure updates that you put on your YouTube channel. Are you sick of this yet?
I've always been sick of it. It's one of the stories I really don't enjoy that much. I have my consciousness thing I like to do and all that kind of stuff, but it sure is popular with the people. I mean, there was some of the updates I did that had like 110,000 hits on them. So people are interested in it, and I've sort of gotten right in the middle of all these people. I have probably 100 people on a list, and that's basically the way I run this thing is you'll see a lot of people are taking sides. Okay, well, you got to be with Tom DeLonge, or you got to be against Tom DeLonge, or you got to be with Pandolfi or against Pandolfi, or all this kind of stuff. And what I say, I've discovered about 100 people who are involved in this story in any of the different organizations, and some of them may not really be posting anything or saying anything, but I watch what everybody says, and a lot of people are talking, and I keep an open mind as to who's right, who's wrong, and listen to everything I can as much as I can. Luckily, I'm retired. I can sort of, search this stuff out and listen to everybody's interviews and see if anybody's added anything. And it's been very popular. So it sort of gives you a feeling that you're actually sort of helping out people who are trying to find the answer to what the heck's going on, because everybody knows, since this DeLonge operation sort of went really viral December the 16th with this New York Times, Washington Post, and Politico. And that's important for people to remember, is that it wasn't just the New York Times. There was 3 major newspapers all went the same day, which indicates that this was carefully planned. There was movement behind the scenes. It wasn't that the New York Times just suddenly, as they said, had a bad day and they needed a story. This was very carefully orchestrated. And I think we are looking at this gradual disclosure thing, or what Bob Bigelow calls confirmation. And I watch as close as I can. And I know Lorien had told me, I was doing an update. There's a couple that aren't on the site, but I'm gonna redo them and put them on the site. Some latest updates. And I remember Lorien was saying, well, don't tell them everything. Don't tell them everything. Save something for the conference in San Jose. And I said, Lorien, I can absolutely guarantee you there's so much material happening, I could do an update every single day, maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes every day. There's that much material happening, and it's an exciting time for ufology. I think people should just sort of sit back and enjoy it. Lots of people are talking. Lots of stuff is happening. And I do believe it's not disclosure, but it's basically it's acclimatization or confirmation. They're basically getting everybody ready to understand that this is for real. We aren't a bunch of crazy people. And then they're going to move to the next step, which will be to release, the idea of who might be behind the phenomenon and that kind of stuff. But an exciting time in ufology. I've spent, is now my 43rd year, and I can tell you that more has happened in the last 2 years than in the first 40 years. I've never seen anything like it. It's just unbelievable.
Why, in your opinion, has Tom DeLonge kind of disappeared?
Well, I think it was actually a plan. I don't think he was intended to be part of this. I had heard going back a year ago, and I pointed this out in some of my updates, that I was told by Chris Bledsoe, who was inside the Tom DeLonge operation, and then he pulled out. They were going to take his story and they were going to take it to Hollywood. That was Tom DeLonge's job. So he was sort of on the inside. He sort of, knew stuff. And I would never bug him for material, but I would sort of listen to him, and the odd time I'd ask him a question. But I didn't want to really put him in a position to, out all his people or what was going on and stuff like that. But what he told me, and this has got to be a year ago, is that high-level officials would come out, they would identify themselves, and they would say this is for real. So Tom DeLonge built the platform, but the platform is set up so that these guys can run this gradual disclosure operation. That's my personal interpretation. So he was in the initial October the 11th news conference, and then when you saw the December 16th, they moved away from Tom DeLonge because Tom DeLonge's got a lot of bad baggage. He has some pretty, lewd lyrics. He's done some pretty stupid things. He ran this conspiracy website, 2012, 2013, that when he went to Lockheed, that was one of the things they brought up because he was saying, I'm serious about this. And then they said, well, what's with the website? What's with this, because he knew a lot of the stuff he was putting up there was total garbage. But he it was like the hype, and he's the bad boy, and he was putting this conspiracy stuff up there. And then after he met them, then he of course pulled that site down. But so what happened? I was told that these high-level officials would out themselves, and they would say it was for real. So that's what happened. So they pulled Tom DeLonge away from the scene, so he didn't appear in the December 16th thing, and it moves from the crazy Tom DeLonge to these high-level government officials who actually do exactly what I was told. They came out, they identified themselves, and they said this thing's for real. And so that was step number one. That was what Bob Bigelow calls confirmation. And there's an interview. I went back. I've got a friend. I don't know if you've ever dealt with him, Giuliano Marinkovic.
No, I haven't.
He was originally in Croatia. He now lives in Ireland, but he's a radio guy. He does it for a living, and he has, without a doubt, the best collection of video, audio, all this kind of stuff. So I can basically go back and say, I want to hear the John Lear interview that he did with Coast to Coast in 1997, and boom, within half an hour, it's in my mailbox. He has this massive collection of all sorts of material, and I should maybe reference him to catalog your stuff, because that's the way I do a lot of my research. So if I hear you've got some guy from inside this operation, I'm going to listen to that guy. And what I do is I take it and I download it onto an MP3, and then I'll play it 2 or 3 times in a day. So I make sure I get everything that's on there. So what I did from him was, because Bob Bigelow was the main figure. If you listen to some of the interviews that George Knapp did with him, George said, I've had Bob Bigelow on here a number of times, and he told us everything during these interviews. He said in 2007 that he had a new partner, that he was back in the investigation game, the UFO game, and he talked about the fact that the government was going to do something. So what I did is I went to Giuliano and I said, can I get all Bob Bigelow's interviews? So he sent me about 7 hours. I've listened to about 4 hours, but he sent me 7 or 8 hours of interviews, all the interviews he'd done. And in the one interview, which is 2013, he does with George Knapp, it's in that interview that he basically does lay it out. I mean, when you hear the interview again, you go, oh, my God, he was talking about this thing. He was talking about the whole thing. So George Knapp says to him, are you in favor of disclosure? And he said, no, I'm not. And he said, I'm in favor of confirmation. And what you need to do is you need to just spell it out for people. This is for real. This is going on. You don't want to give them the bodies. You don't want to give them the crafts. You don't want to download them with all sorts of stuff and overwhelm their minds. The first step you got to make is you got to tell people this thing's for real. There are objects out there. And that's exactly what they did on December the 16th. So that was this thing about what he calls confirmation. They were going to confirm. He said that in 2013. And yet he said in that interview, he said there are agencies within the government who have decided that it's time to be more open on the subject. So that's what the 16th was. So they've made this first move. It's for real. There is actually objects, and they move away from all this rest of stuff. So Tom DeLonge doesn't get to talk about evil aliens. They take the word threatening out of that at the beginning of the news conference that he has October the 11th. One of the things he did is they altered the video. At the very beginning, you have Tom DeLonge on that. He's talking, and he's talking about the 3 things that he discovered. One, there's things that should never been classified. One, I can't remember what the second one was, and the third one was there are things that are so. In the original video, it says there are things that are so terrifying and unknown that they will never be disclosed, or something to that effect. So when that video was out there, so when they play that video at the beginning of the October 11th news conference, they take the word threatening out. So what they want them talking about aliens. They don't want them talking about evil aliens. They basically do the old rah, rah, rah. This is the Sputnik days, and we've got this opportunity. The Russians are working on this. We've got this opportunity to move this thing ahead, and everybody feels good. We're going to have free energy and all this kind of stuff. And that's the way they run it. They leave all the alien stuff out, all the crash saucer stuff out, all the the threat stuff out. And they just sort of spin it. So that's what people got to realize, is this story is being very, very carefully orchestrated from behind the scenes. And so what they did is they pulled Tom DeLonge out of the operation because he's not the best spokesman. Because you know what happened after October 11th. And October 11th was something that didn't should have happened a year before. It was actually the Christmas before that this was supposed to be unraveled. And, of course, nothing happened. So all the way through 2017, he said, another 3 weeks, another month, and this delay thing. And by the time it came to the October 11th thing, everybody was saying, his big announcement. We got another delay. And people were just hammering him. If you looked at his Facebook site, people were just ridiculing him. And he really didn't have control of it because he's not running the operation. He just provided the platform. It's these high-level guys behind who are orchestrating this. For example, Jim Semivan, who is the guy I say is running the operation, is an absolute expert on media. He's the guy that set up the New York Times, Washington Post political thing, orchestrated them all to go the same day. That's why there was such a delay, because he was supposed to have done this right after the October thing. And then there was more delays, but they were trying to get all these newspapers to go at the same time. So this was all orchestrated behind the scenes. It had nothing to do with Tom DeLonge. So he's basically sort of been removed from the program, and what they've got is these these high-level guys who you really can't ridicule. I mean, you can't really say, Elizondo's got a bad background, or Hal Puthoff, or Kit Green, or there's so many of these people. And one after another, they're coming out. Just the other night, Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis came out and talked about the film and about the reports on the Nimitz and what they had, and actually made some interesting new disclosures. Hal Puthoff actually made a disclosure that there is a document that has leaked into the public, not through them, but it is leaked, that actually talks about a crash. And it's a legitimate document. It's a real document. So now I'm on the search to try to figure out what document is he talking about. So this is the thing, is they have these people out there rather than Tom DeLonge. Because every time Tom DeLonge comes up, they say, oh, he's just this crazy rock star and stuff. So this is I think the program they're using is they're using these high-level officials. And people don't realize the significance of that. So you have like actual government officials who are saying, yes, this is for real. Yes, this is the real deal. There are these objects, whatever. The only thing that hasn't changed, because what I'm saying is this is a disclosure operation. Nothing has changed. I wrote the book Managing Magic. Before that, I wrote the book UFOs, Area 51 and Government Informants. And before that, UFOs, UFOs, Majestic 12, and the government. And in all those books, the 3 books, I talked about this gradual disclosure, that they've been doing this since 1947. They've been doing this sort of, you take information and you put it inside disinformation and you float it out to the public. So the disinformation covers it. So you can always pull it back when you want. Nobody can really clarify, is that really the story? And that's the same thing has happened with this. And people don't realize that. What you hear is the New York Times confirmed this. The government has confirmed that they have this program that they spent $22 million. Not so. The government has confirmed nothing. I came to the New York Times, and we talked to the reporter because there was all this, these stories, and I still believe the videos were altered. But we went back to the New York Times reporter, this Ralph Blumenthal, and he was furious. He was furious. You think I'm stupid? Do you think I didn't check this kind of stuff? So maybe he checked it, but there have been a pile of FOIAs filed on this thing. I don't know if you've ever interviewed Robert Powell, who worked on the Nimitz story. He's been working on it for a couple of years. He's filed 13 FOIAs. George Knapp filed FOIAs. I had a reporter file an FOIA on the group and on the documents. And John Greenwald has filed a number of FOIs for a number of months on this program, and nobody has got anything. It's the same old thing. We don't know about this group. We don't have any documents. It's the same old story. It's like he floated this thing out. Everybody thinks it's been confirmed, and the government is saying, nah, there's no official confirmation that this group exists. There's no official documents that we can get through FOIA, and so it's the same old program that. When you, it's a good story, and then when you start to go after the story, it sort of goes into this sort of no man's land again, where you really don't have anything to confirm. But you do have these high-level officials who are actually coming out and saying, yes, I worked in this program, yes, this thing's for real, and it's worked great. I mean, because I know one of the next updates I'm going to do an update on the CIA director involvement in this whole disclosure story. And one of the stories I'm going to tell is a story about 1991, where they were going to brief, and disclosure was going to take place under Bush Sr. And that all fell apart. But in that whole thing, they tell the story about Robert Gates was coming in. He had been sort of nominated to be a CIA director. And the guy that was going out, his name was Webster, CIA director. And so they're waiting for Gates to come in. And they go through this whole thing. They need 16 votes. They're going to go to Kennebunkport. They're going to do the briefing. And this is as the Soviet Union is falling, the third week of August. The Soviet Union falls. And Webster flips out. So they have 8 votes. They're trying to get 8 more votes to go with the program. They actually only get 4 votes. They actually lose 4 votes going into this thing. But Webster kicks, as the story is told, Webster kicks a chair over and he said, "You can't do this to me. You can't do this to me. I've had lots of people sitting in that chair over there, senators and high-level people, and I've told them there's nothing to this. You can't do this to me. Because, of course, it's the old deal. Is whoever is holding the bag when this thing actually drops into the open is going to be, you liar. I mean, you're going to be taking all the rap for this. So Webster was very upset that he was going to have to take the rap for this whole deal, that they were going to expose it on his watch. And that's something that they sort of have overcome this time. They've sort of managed to flip this thing out where vast majority of people, and you probably have, talking to people on the street, you realize that people have seen this and they went, oh man, did you see that video, man? That's cool. The government admitted this thing and all this kind of stuff. So they've managed to do this, and there was no riots. There was no, religious people, flipping out or whatever. They managed to actually start where they should have in 1947. They basically come out and said, we've got this phenomena. We don't know what it is, but we're studying it, and it's important to study. And they've left all the other stuff. They've got a lot more information. They know a lot more than they're putting out. But that they're trying to redo 1947 all over again. Just try to get people to realize that this is for real and that the government has been involved and the government has run a program.
A couple of weeks ago, we had John Alexander on this show, and I had never interviewed him, and I had talked to you and Lorien about this away from the being on air, and you guys kind of said, well, good luck if you get anything out of him. And, he was a cranky curmudgeon. I'm not going to lie. I had a lot of fun with it. It was probably one of the most frustrating interviews that I had done in a long time. But I asked him about Tom DeLonge. And he didn't seem to have much use for DeLonge. Basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, calling him a patsy.
He's probably right. Yeah, he's probably right. Did he tell you he knew everybody on that panel for 20 years?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And he knew, like same thing. He said, oh, I was on the sidelines. I really didn't know, but I sort of knew something was going on. So all these years he's been saying, there's nobody in the government that's working on this thing. The government isn't smart enough. There's a lot of people who are interested in UFOs, but there is no program. And yet, at the same time, he knew that this thing was going on. And everybody kept quiet. George Knapp knew about this in 2007 when this thing started. And he kept quiet. So, yes, John, I don't know if there was another interview he did on January 3rd. I'll have to make sure I get yours. I'd like to listen to it because from time to time I'll pick up stuff that people won't necessarily pick up in terms of things that he says that sort of ring a bell with me, but they don't. And one of the things was, I don't know if you talked to him about going to see Chris Bledsoe, but he went down to see this experience of Chris Bledsoe in North Carolina. And John is always sort of on the leading edge of whenever there's a big development or some discovery in UFOs or some big story, John always appears on the scene, like he wants to investigate this. So he went to, Vancouver for Hutchinson for when he's bending the metal and stuff. John appears there to find out what's going on here, almost like he's reporting to somebody who's whatever, or maybe he's just really, really interested and chases all these stories down. So he went to Chris Bledsoe, and he was asked in that interview, they said, so why would you go and see Chris Bledsoe? Like, why did you do that? And then he hesitates and he says, well, my sponsor set it up for me. And I'm going, wow, sponsor. It's like, not only is he sort of, he's like, he's 80 years old or whatever. He's retired and suddenly he's got a sponsor. So the question is, who's the sponsor? And I'm just guessing, but I believe it would be Jim Semivan, because Jim Semivan, the guy who runs the Tom DeLonge operation, is this ex-briefer for the President of the United States who's an experiencer. And he took a liking to Chris Bledsoe. He was very close to Chris Bledsoe. He went down to Chris Bledsoe's birthday party and stuff. And he's the one that told Tom DeLonge, once he was running the Tom DeLonge operation, he said, I want you to take Chris Bledsoe's story. I want you to take it to Hollywood, and I want you to make it happen. Because he believes that Chris Bledsoe's story is very, very important, because it's symbolic of his story. In 1992 or whatever, we had the beings in the room, and suddenly he's outside in his pajamas watching this flying saucer take off. And so that would be my guess, the sponsor. But then there's another report of a sponsor And I don't know if you've picked up a lot of the bits and pieces of the story people haven't really picked up because they really don't realize sort of the significance. You see the New York Times or the Washington Post mentioned the fact that they were working with experiencers. And because a lot of people sort of ignore experiencers as being just a bunch of people who think they interacted with aliens and it is believed that, but hypnosis is not very good, and they've been led by a hypnotist and all this kind of nonsense. And they're running a program with experiencers, and the people who are running the program are Gary Nolan from Stanford University, who you might want to try to contact. He's a guy that will sort of talk. He's the genetics guy. And then Kit Green, who was at the CIA, ran the Weird Desk at the CIA before Ron Pandolfi. From 1969 to 83, he ran the Weird Desk, where they do the, remote viewing, parapsychology, ghosts, UFOs, the whole 9 yards. It's all the same thing. And they call it phenomenology. So he ran it, and then Ron Pandolfi took over in 1983. But so Kit Green and Nolan, and Kit Green is the expert on neurology, on brain patterns and scans and all this kind of stuff. And then you have Hal Puthoff is the third member of the team. And then there's an engineer working for Hal at the Institute for Advanced Studies in Austin who's also involved in this program. But what they do is people who have been injured by UFOs, like John Burroughs went through the program, Chris Bledsoe was studied. And so what they do is they take the experiencer and they look at your DNA. And they, as Nolan points out, every event in your life is recorded in your DNA. They can actually track this now, so they can actually tell when you had a cold, when they had the flu, when you had trauma, all this sort of stuff. And so they're looking at the DNA of highly psychic people and UFO experiencers who have been injured, and they're looking at this to see. Is there a pattern in the genes? Now, what I was told, and this is not from them, this is just from one of the experiencers, is that they were told that every experiencer has a DNA marker that is there from birth, that is unique to them, to that group of people. And so during that, just recently, a couple of tapes, one tape leaked out by Dr. Kit Green, and Kit Green is he's still at Wayne State University, and he's doing the brain scans with these people. And he, at one point during this interview, he's talking to an intuitive, which is very unique. So they have these people who've been injured, and then what they have done is they've taken intuitives, and there are two of them. And apparently, according to this tape where he's talking, these people are 95% accurate. So what they'll do is say, Dave, you had an experience and you've been injured or whatever. So then they go to an intuitive and they give you a number. Okay, this number, tell us about this person. And these intuitives will tell all about you. And this is where they're 95% effective. And then they say, what's their connection to the UFO thing? What aliens are they dealing with? All this kind of stuff. And Kit Green stated he's really not that interested, but he said there's people on he didn't call it a team, he called it something else, who will be very interested in this. I'm only interested in the neurology. And he's questioning this woman. This tape's like an hour long while he's talking to this woman, and she's talking about different 001, the target 001, all this kind of stuff. But at this point, he said, my sponsor wants to know this. My sponsor wants to know that. So there's this thing about sponsors. Now, whether it's Bigelow putting up money for this program, because as you may know or may not know, Elizondo, when he came out, said this program ran from 2007 to 2012. But later on in an interview, and this is why you have to keep listening to every single interview they do, because they'll say something they hadn't said before. In one of the later interviews, Elizondo said they were refunded in 2013. And in almost all the stories you hear, they basically, nobody mentions that. They keep saying, oh, in 2012, like if you get Seth Shostak comes out and he says, well, they ran this program for 5 years and they shut it down because they weren't getting anything, and it proves our case. There's nothing to this. That's why they shut the program down, because it wasn't getting anything. It's not true. The program was still running, and according to one of the stories, Elizondo actually trained the guy when he left. So when I look at this thing, I see the Elizondo quitting. It's just a cover story. I mean, if you listen to the early interviews by Tom DeLonge, he talks about him. He was called Mr. L. He said, this is a guy that I was told you could never, ever use this guy's name. He was in contact with Elizondo long before Elizondo quit. And so that's why people have to realize this is all very carefully orchestrated. And I believe that Elizondo, this is all arranged beforehand. He declassified these tapes. That's why they asked, how did he get the tape? Oh, I said, how did he get the tapes out? Because I don't care who you are. I mean, you can't just walk out when you quit from the Defense Department and walk out with all the UFO tapes. Like, how do you get them out of there? And then he said, well, he declassified the classified ones, and then he hid them in spots, and he knew where to get them when he left. But then you're not with the government, so how do you get the tapes? And that's I call it the high hurdle, and that's the problem. That no matter when they do the disclosure thing, they're always going to have that problem. Is how do you actually say this is actually approved by the government, some government signs off on it, and it's actually made public. And that's why I'm saying, when you look at the videos and you look at all this sort of stuff, there's nobody inside the government that's admitting this thing. Nobody has signed off on this thing. Nobody's signed off on the videos. We don't know any name. The only name that we have is one spokesman for the Defense Department. And what he told my reporter friend when he filed the FOA, he said, well, sir, we really didn't release anything, sir. And then he said, well, I want to file an FOIA. Who should I go to? Sorry, sir, I really can't help you with that. And he basically was saying, well, we don't know what you're talking about here. And so that's the whole thing, is when you pull the videos or the hardware. Like when you pull the hardware, you always have to have this plausible deniability that you can't say, okay, this came out of this government vault, because then you lose control of the story. That's always the problem, is how do you actually confirm this sort of thing? So they've gone sort of halfway, and this experiencer thing is going on. The hardware thing's going on. There's all these reports that a couple of days ago Putoff was talking about different types of propulsion systems that they were looking at and stuff like that. All these reports are there. The problem you have now is that it's all proprietary information. So before you had the government covering up, and you had to figure out which agency and FOIA and how to get it and who's hiding it, all this sort of stuff, and stop them from destroying the documents. Now it's all owned by Bob Bigelow. So he owns the hardware, he owns the files, he owns all the videos, he owns everything. He controls everything, and it's proprietary information. You can't get it with an FOIA. And so when they asked Putoff about that the other night, he said, well, Bob has it, and it's proprietary information, and people will have to negotiate with him to get it. So you've had this sort of stall. They've released 2 videos, and Bob Bigelow, the last I saw, was refusing to be interviewed by a newspaper in Nevada. So you have this stall as they unravel this plan. And what I was told before, this is not something that they're experimenting with. They know exactly what they're going to do next and exactly when they're going to do it. So this is very carefully planned. It's all orchestrated. I heard some timelines. One guy from NASA said 2025. So they're going to unravel this over a couple of years. And that's what Tom DeLonge's doing too. Like the Tom DeLonge thing, people think, oh, Tom DeLonge wants to drop this stuff. Tom DeLonge has really not that much interest in disclosure. Tom DeLonge wants to control the story. And so he said, we're going to release this. He's got 6 books. We already know what the books are. The first one that was released, a nonfiction book, was Gods. The second one is Man. The third one is War. We know what the books are. They've apparently been written already. So you're going to have to buy his 6 books, and you're going to have to buy his video in order to find out what's actually going on. So he's going to gradually leak this stuff out and make money on it, because that's what he is. He's a media guy. He's a storyteller guy. He wants, as he said, we got to turn this thing into a trilogy, where it's like Star Wars, where you got toys, and his whole thing is to make money. Like he's, I don't know if you've heard, he's got he's going to be releasing the Bob Lazar stories, the book for Bob Lazar. And the way he describes it, to me, I would say, oh, here's the Bob Lazar story, and put it out. And to him, he's got the lifetime rights to the Bob Lazar story. So to him, it's all money. It's, controlling the story, putting the story out, getting Spielberg to do stuff, making lots of money on this thing, and sort of being the guy that funnels all this stuff. Really not that much interest in the bottom line to the whole thing. It's just more the storytelling aspect, I think, because that's his company. That's what he does. He's got a To the Stars media empire that does books and videos and TV shows and movies and stuff like that.
One more question on Tom DeLonge. And this is kind of what I noticed, and I'm curious about this. Did he get pulled off the speaking circuit because of the, I'm going to say it this way, the fool he made of himself on the Joe Rogan Experience?
Well, they what I think what happens is they pull him. Like, for example, if you remember, it was about 2 days before I had done an update. 2 days before they dropped the films, the big article thing with the films and stuff. He was actually on his Facebook, and in one of my updates, I actually post it's either on Facebook or on Twitter, where he posts this, and he said, "Oh, they've told me it's coming out, and now they say another couple of days." And he goes, "Ugh," like as if he's been dragged along too, and even he doesn't believe it's going to happen. So basically, they pulled him out of the whole thing because they don't need him. They needed him to set the thing up, to get this thing orchestrated, but he's not really the greatest spokesman. So they let him. They've given him very limited interviews. He did the Rogan thing, which didn't go very well. But you see all the interviews, none of them are being done by him. They're being done by all these like Putoff, and now Eric Davis has joined the crowd, and Elizondo and the pilots and stuff like that. And that, I think they always intended that. I don't think it was in, that some people, like dark journalists said, they sort of canned him, they pulled him out. I don't think so. I think it was, he knew all along that they were going to move it, because I was told that was going to happen, that it would not be Tom DeLonge, it would be other people who would make the move. And that was before he went on Rogan. That was before a lot of this stuff happened. So I think it's just basically an operation where they know what they're going to do. They want these high-level people. They're going to do it sort of slowly. And Tom DeLonge really doesn't help the case, because he says some stupid things, like, the aliens and using nuclear weapons to kill the aliens and stuff like that. And he's sort of like, almost like he goes off script, almost like trying to stop Donald Trump from tweeting. It's that kind of thing where he's kind of a rogue guy. So I don't think you're going to see too much of Tom DeLonge. He'll be in the background saying rah rah rah, putting out Twitter things and saying this is the greatest moment of my life. I pulled this thing off, or all that kind of stuff. And yet in the end, and I keep reminding people, and it's another thing that almost nobody brings up, and it kind of disappoints me, is that Tom DeLonge had really nothing to do with this at all. He is, as John Alexander sort of points out, like a puppet. He, because people say, like Leslie Kean, and Leslie Kean is the embedded journalist. So what they're doing, that's where you can see. So she gets the initial interviews. So when Elizondo retires, the next day he's being interviewed by her. So this is all orchestrated. So they can get her to put out the story they want to put out. So if you do the story, if I do the story, we're going to be like Tom DeLonge. We're going to go rogue. We're going to, bring out stuff that they don't want to hear. Whereas Leslie Kean just does the simple story that they want. So she gets access to all the witnesses. And you've mentioned before, you can't get an interview with these guys. They're not talking to you. And they're not talking to me. I tried to get hold of Putoff. He didn't talk to me. I basically talked to Eric Davis, and then he got upset at me, and he really, it's sort of off now. But so they have this very carefully orchestrated story. Leslie does that story. Then she's part of the New York Times story. And it's very carefully set out. And Tom DeLonge is not part of that sort of thing, because he's kind of something that you can't really control, and he really doesn't know that much. You're going with these high level officials, and that I'm sure is going to be the thing. You're not going to see Tom DeLonge doing too much of anything after now. And that was the big thing that people thought was, and Leslie Kean put this out, and it wasn't true at all. She said, he did such a good job putting these guys together. He had nothing to do with putting these guys together. Absolutely nothing. There may have been some that he contacted after the fact, but as I tell the story, and I keep telling it, but nobody listens, the way the whole thing started, Tom DeLonge got an invite to Skunkworks, to a barbecue that they were holding in the parking lot. And the families still don't know what their loved ones do, but they had this parking lot party for the kids and stuff like that. And Tom DeLonge, they know he's into UFOs, and so they invite him to the party. And they say, we'd like you to introduce the president of Lockheed. Now, why would you bring in a rock star? Because he said, like this is part of his thing, because he talked to some guy that was related to the president and said, does your, whatever it was, your uncle or father or whatever, talk about UFOs? Oh, hell yeah. And so he puts out the sort of the word that he's interested in this kind of stuff. Then they invite him to the party. So why do you need a rock star to introduce somebody? He goes in there and he says, well, I'll do it as long as I can talk to the guy for 5 minutes. So he gets this famous meeting at inside the facility, the secure facility at Lockheed. And he's talking to the head scientist, one other guy, and then Robert Weiss, the head Lockheed guy, walks in. That's where they ask him about, well, why are you running this website? What's the deal with all that kind of stuff? And he's trying to, he's trying to explain why he put this stupid website up. And because he's saying, I'm here and we're going to tell the truth and all this kind of stuff. And then they ask him about the website. So in that thing, he goes through the whole thing about, the cargo cult and religions are caused by alien sightings, and the aliens are giving everybody weapons, all the different religions, and the religions are fighting each other. And when the last religion is, everybody's killed everybody off and there's one religion left, then the aliens are come in and take over. I mean, that's his basic theory, this cargo cult nonsense theory. And so he puts that out. And as soon as he brings up that theory, my impression is they go, oh, man, we got a live one here. And they say, we got someone we want you to talk to. And he believes that because he picked up the cargo cult theory, and that's what's really going on, and he picked it off, that's why they dealt with him. And so they send him. So he doesn't have anything to do with this. They send him from Lockheed. They say, we got somebody in Washington we want you to meet by the Pentagon. And he goes there and he meets looks like it's 2 CIA guys, and they meet with him and they say, from time to time, people decide that we're going to move the ball down the field, and he talks to them, and then they send him to NASA, and then NASA is talking to him, somebody high-level guy in NASA, and then he sends him to the West Coast, and on the West Coast he meets this another guy from Ames. And this guy talks to him inside this whole thing inside the airport. He never even leaves the airport. He just flies in there and he flies back out. He never even leaves the airport. And this guy talks to him and he puts him in contact with the generals. So he starts with these Air Force generals. So the whole idea that Tom DeLonge set this thing up is not true at all. They set him up. They gave him all these players. This is your player, and then you introduce this player, and they introduced him to this whole team of people. And Tom DeLonge is the platform. So Tom DeLonge does have a role in this thing. He has a very important role. He did a very important job to provide this platform, to roll this thing out. But now the platform is there. They don't need him anymore. Now they're going to roll this thing out themselves. And they're going to, even the other night when Hal Puthoff mentions the fact that there's this leaked document on crash flying saucers. I mean, just little bits and pieces are sort of leaking out. And they're even almost, I think, feeding me. Since I had these big YouTube videos, I've gotten contacts from people that I never thought I would, just unbelievable. It's like these very, very high-level people on these things, almost like I'm being set up where they know I'm putting the story out, and they're trying to, as I always say, what they're doing is they're managing the story. They can do one of two things. If Dave, if you've got the story, they can do one of two things. They can either kill you, or they can go in there and try to manage you. So they say, Dave, we're from the CIA, and I hear you're working on the CIA, and, we'd like to help you out. If you've ever been to the CIA, we'll take you for a tour. And they manage you. They try to get you to go in the right direction, to keep you away from classified material and move you in the right direction. So that's basically what I say is going on. And I've gotten these high-level things, and a couple of names, and this is the first time I made this public. Some of these people, and I don't even know who they are. That's why I had about 80-some people on the list. Now I've got 100. It's just in the last couple of days, 20 new people have appeared. And some of the names are, his name escapes me, Hamblin, who is the head of the Jasons. Are you familiar with the Jasons?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay. I wrote about them first in the late 1980s in this book, UFOs, MJ-12, and the Government, where I was chasing Dr. Eric Walker around. And Walker was a former president of Penn State University, and he had made this comment. He had been contacted by a UFO researcher by the name of Bill Steinman a couple days after the MJ-12 document was released. And he said, I'd like to he had been squealed on by Robert Sarbacher. Robert Sarbacher had said he'd been at these briefings, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in 1950. So Sarbacher, Steinman phones him up, Walker, and he said, I understand you were at a set of briefings at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base dealing with the recovery of a flying saucer and alien bodies. And Walker said, yeah, I was there. So what? And he went, what do you mean, so what? He says, are you crazy? This is the biggest story of all. He's yelling and screaming at Walker, and Walker says, well, calm down. He says, what's the big deal? And then he says, I've got this document in front of me. It's an MJ-12 document. And do you know anything about it? He said, I've known of them for 40 years. And this is 1987. This is like a couple days after the document came out. Nobody even knew there was a document. I've known of them for 40 years. Leave it alone. There's nothing you can do about it. You're up against the windmills. So we were chasing Walker around. So when I was doing all the background on Walker, trying to figure out who this guy was, I realized, in the research I did, that he was the co-developer of the homing torpedo during World War II. He was good friends with Vannevar Bush, very good friends. He had actually taught at the same university as Vannevar Bush's sister. So he knew all the MJ-12 people. He even told us that. He knew all the people on the list. And but I couldn't talk about this. I don't talk about this subject because it's classified. He didn't want to talk about it. And go do something else. You're wasting your time, all this kind of stuff. And so basically, when we were doing this research with Walker, I discovered that he was the chairman of the board of the Institute for Defense Analysis, which is the top military think tank in the United States, used by the Defense Department. And there's two big things that came out of the Institute for Defense Analysis. One was ARPA, which later became DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, where everything came from: stealth fighter, over-the-horizon radar, the drone stuff, all the latest technology. Their motto is, we turn science fiction into science fact. They have a $3 billion budget. They have 100 project managers with about $125 million worth of research funds each. They work on on things that people, just the wackiest things possible, trying to get on the leading edge of research. So DARPA came out of there, but the other group that came out of there when I was doing the Walker research was a group called the Jasons. And the Jasons goes almost back to World War II. So in World War II, the way defense stuff works is that in World War II, you had all these guys like Walker. So instead of giving Walker a gun and telling him to go to Europe and stand in a trench, they say, you'll be $1 a year man. You can continue to be a professor at, first he was at Tufts University, then he went to Penn State University. You can continue to be a professor, and we're going to give you some funding for a lab, and we want you to help us work on weapons for the war. So most of the weapons during World War II were developed by these $1 a year men, high-level scientists from various universities, and they developed all this technology. So Walker co-developed the homing torpedo. He ran the underwater torpedo lab at Penn State University. He got all the money. They built this big lab there for him and stuff like that. And what they did, so they used the same process. During the 60s, they started what was called the Jasons. And the Jasons were the top physicists in the country. These were sort of like professors and like the cream of the crop for physicists. And they would have what were called summer study projects. So they would, professors only work from September to April, and then during the summer they're supposed to be doing research or whatever, and they really don't do anything for those 5 months. So what they would do is these summer study projects, and they would hire these physicists to go on these summer study projects, and they would work on the most complex problems in the military. And most of them were nuclear weapons program. They have this problem with nuclear weapons. So they would give them in groups. They come out with groups of 4, groups of 5. And I started to gather all the names of these Jasons, trying to figure out who they were, how many there were, because I figured, man, you would absolutely bring these Jasons into the UFO problem. We got this problem. We got this thing. We need to figure this sort of thing out. And even Ron Pandolfi has been identified as running one of these, providing researchers for one of these Jason projects. So they still are operational today. It's sort of a very secret thing who's on it. But one of the people that was on one of these emails I'm on now is the head of the Jasons. I think he's at MIT or Harvard. He's at one of these, I think MIT. And the other one is a guy named Rick Dearborn. And I didn't know who Rick Dearborn was until we started looking. And the rumor was he's deputy chief of staff in the White House. He's the chief of staff. He's the head of policy. He's about to leave the White House. but he's the key guy. So he would be what I think is the point man. So you have Ron Pandolfi. You have all these different groups, disclosure groups working. But Ron Pandolfi, according to me, is the guy who's running. I don't care what anybody says or what Ron says, because he says a bunch of garbage that, he's just putting a bunch of garbage. But he's the guy is known to have the keys. So in a classified program like the UFO stuff, you have to have somebody who's in charge of the keys to the vault. So you have all these people running around. I have the highest security clearance in the world and all this kind of crap, and I know this and I grow that. And none of that to me is true. They're all orchestrated. They're all sent out, or they're lying, or they're delusional, or whatever. That you have to. That's what Ron Pandolfi's job is to identify. If you're, say, Dave, you're working on a program and suddenly you get into classified material, he comes to you and he says, "You're in classified material. Stop it, or you lose your security clearance." And he does that sort of thing because he knows what's classified in the UFO field and he knows what's not classified. And he's the guy who runs the weird desk, the CIA UFO desk. He's the guy that briefs the president. And
Grant, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to step out for a break right now. Grant's going to be with us for hour number 2. We're going to get Lorien Fenton in here. We're talking disclosure all night. I am absolutely excited. Grant Cameron is our guest. Presidential UFO or White House UFO.com, one of the two sites, leads to Grant. This man is a pro. He does not say anything that he hasn't vetted himself. That's why we get him on here so often, because he's the one guy I trust to tell our listeners truly what is going on with disclosure. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Lorien Fenton here, SOR listeners. Join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th, where 14 presenters discuss all things disclosure, UFOs, and aliens. Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address disclosure. Preston Dennett will present Inside UFOs. Your Dave Scott and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien contact. Get tickets at caufocon.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorien Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey space travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Well, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, John Tenney will be back with us, the Paranormal Weirdo. Will join us at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com or revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Alama Gooslam. Whatever the hell that is, Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Go to periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio if you want to watch us live, like right now, because we are live on the show. And, of course, we are also having our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio if you want to listen to our archives as well. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month, rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at the Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the Encounter online, and we got great videos from UFO seekers at Contact TV and so much more at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we're talking with Grant Cameron about disclosure. We have been joined by Lorien Fenton as well because, well, we just love Lorien around here. You know, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic to have you both here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
I love being here, Dave.
Now, Lorien, I know you're trying to find us on Periscope. I don't have the link on me right here, but just go into the little search button there. You know, the eyeglass. You know. And type in Spaced Out Radio, and you'll be able to see me, and I'll wave to you when you're there.
Okay, I'll tell you when I'm there. This is so cool.
Now, Grant, I want to get into this because I find this one very close to my heart, and you know from listening in, and we have talked about it in the past, that I'm a little bit concerned. I'm not going to say miffed or upset, but I'm going to use the word concerned about the way the media, many media members, you know, alternative-wise, that is, have been treated by the To the Stars campaign in not getting press coverage and not being able to interview any of these people whatsoever. And I understand that that was a plan. But the question that I have for you, and I'm very concerned with, and I may be overstepping my boundaries here by asking this, but are certain media members who continue to get these interviews, are they bought off?
Not bought off. They're providing what the To the Stars needs. So, you know, CNN phones, they say, okay, that's a pretty good interview. We'll take that. George Knapp has been in there since the beginning, so George Knapp gets an interview. It's basically, if they think the interview will help the cause, they'll do it. If it's they don't really know who the person is, or you're going to ask hardball questions, they're not going there. Because it is orchestrated. That's what you got to remember. This whole thing is so carefully orchestrated. And Tom DeLonge, in one of my updates, I show a picture of him with the woman who owns Voice of America, runs Voice of America. I mean, he's a guy who knows the ins and outs of this kind of thing. So, and the fact that they got all three media to go at the same time indicates that that it was very well planned. And I've heard 60 Minutes is going to be involved. I've heard these sort of things. So they're looking at that kind of exposure, very carefully controlled. The same thing as why did Leslie Kean get the interview? Why was she able to go in and interview Lou Elizondo the day after he retires, Steve Justice a week or 2 weeks after he retires, get Hal Puthoff, get Eric Davis on background. She gets to interview everybody because she will write the story the way they want it written. That's the basic thing. The story is being controlled very carefully.
But that's my question. If they are controlling who is allowed to talk to them or not, they have the media under control, which on a journalistic sense really, you know, takes away what the role of a journalist is supposed to be.
Oh, I got to cut in here. I can't stand it another second. Okay, Dave, you and I had this conversation kind of privately a while back. And, you know, my problem with it, and I hope Grant Cameron agrees with me on this, is my problem with this. This is an old boys club, and George Knapp has been embedded in this since the early days of Art Bell. He's known Bigelow since the early days of Art Bell. This whole thing is just another ploy, and they're not going to let anybody in from the outside. It's that simple. We're the outside, Dave. We're just the outside. They're never going to talk to you. They're never going to talk to me. That's for sure, because I will do everything I can to expose them. I mean, my whole conference is about exposing these people, and I'm just dying to see how many spooks are going to show up. Hopefully we'll all be sitting there. We can look at them and count them on our, on both hands. But it's like, it's never going to happen. It's too much of an old boys club. I mean, I've been dealing with this since MUFON. It's, as Grant knows, these guys have been controlling the narrative since 1962. Isn't that right, Grant?
Well, I would say that from word go. I mean, it's always control. And the story I tell is when they did the atomic bomb in 1945. They got the Pulitzer Prize winning science writer for the New York Times. They brought him into the vice president, Truman, did not know they had an atomic bomb, but the science writer from the New York Times knew. I think his name was Lawrence, I think was his name. And they brought him in. They briefed him on the whole thing. He was one of the two planes that dropped the atomic bombs in Japan. And he put out the story in the New York Times when the Trinity site thing was detonated, that there was an explosion at an armory. And that's why this big thing. So this is the thing. They bring these embedded journalists in, and they write what they're supposed to write. They can stay on script. They're not going to walk off and do their own thing. And that's what these guys are using. They're using people that they can trust.
CIA, a mockingbird operatives is basically what it comes down to. It may not be that name anymore, but I can guarantee you this: somebody's getting a paycheck from somewhere to keep them on script and going to the right people, obviously.
Now Leslie Kane has a movie coming out on her book and stuff like that. So it all works. I mean, it's and it's not just men. So Leslie is in the thing. And so it's the people who they can trust. And like Leslie Kane was good friends with John Podesta, and John Podesta is part of the DeLong operation. And so he'd written the foreword to her book. And she, I've had disagreements with her over the years. When I put up my Hillary Clinton website, she wrote me a very scathing email that said, "I'm ruining everything for everybody. What do you think? You think you're going to get her to talk?" And she's very conservative the way she talks. We really don't know what's going on. And that whole line, and that's what they want. They want to slowly put out there. And so they really don't care about journalism. They don't care about you. They don't care about anybody else. They're interested in controlling the story, getting it out there. They're really not concerned about whether you are upset or anybody else is upset that they didn't get the story. It's a very controlled story.
But Dave, I gotta say,
hold on one second here.
You're absolutely right about the fact that they're ignoring you, and I don't think it's right. I agree with you on that. I think it's poor journalism. I think it's terrible what they're doing to the rest of us. I totally agree with you on this.
Okay, but what's different if you were like, say, Bono or someone like that? I mean, you have your people that you go to. You're not going to do interviews with podcasts. You're not going to do interviews with, just because somebody wants to interview you doesn't mean you're going to interview. They're going to go to people who are going to help their cause.
Well, that's true.
No, I understand that. I understand where you're going with that. Everybody has their favorite media. When I would walk into the Vancouver Canucks dressing room, there were players who would come up to me because they trusted me. I get that. But when you hold a press conference to introduce everybody to the world, and then you're not answering any media requests, it's not just Spaced Out Radio that I'm upset with. It's Lorien's show. It's Midnight in the Desert. It's Clyde Lewis. It's absolutely everyone who is a player in this field that is getting ripped off by this media scam. And it is a scam. To me, from listening to what you're saying, is they may not have been bought off financially, but they may have been bought off with information and book deals and movie deals, which is going to make people like Leslie Kean or George Knapp very financially set for the rest of their life.
Exactly.
Yeah, but again, I think it's not a journalism thing to them. It's an operation. This is an operation that I believe is run by Rand Pandolfi, and it has a certain plan, and they're not into, journalism, or it's like almost like George Bush when he made the statement to Jimmy Carter: curiosity is not sufficient need to know. We really don't care what anybody thinks. We are here to do a job, and we're going to pick the people who are going to do the job we want them to do. And mostly they want to control the story, because you always got to remember this thing can spiral out of control at any moment. And that's the story I told about Webster, where he kicks the chair and he said, you can't do this to me. You can't be dropping this thing on my watch, because you could face, they were talking about how many lawsuits there was going to be in 1991, all the backlash there was going to be and stuff like that. So they're very concerned that this thing comes out the way they want it, slowly. And they probably unraveled this numerous times with Chase Brandon did that. I mean, Chase Brandon, it was the same story. I mean, Chase Brandon comes out, he goes on Coast to Coast. Then he does about maybe 6 shows. And then he disappears into the shadows, and nobody ever went after him. Nobody chased him. He comes out and drops the fact that Roswell was real, it was extraterrestrial, and there were bodies. And now he's still in Hollywood. When I checked to see where he is, he's still a consultant. He's in Hollywood. He's doing the same job he did for the CIA, except he's in the black world now. And so they have this playbook that they learn how to control a story, how to leak a story, how to do this kind of stuff. That's what it is. It's really, I don't think it's got anything to do with journalism.
So in other words, then they're just advocates. That's all they are.
They're doing a job. They're doing what they've been trained to do from the CIA or whoever's running this thing, and they're determined that they're going to do it the way it was always done. And they don't talk to me either. I mean, Hal Puthoff, I always talked to Hal Puthoff for maybe 20 years. I'd ask him a question about this or that. He'd give me a one-line response and basically answer whatever question I was asking him, whatever. And then he, after the news conference, October 11th, then suddenly he wanted to link up on LinkedIn. So then I contacted him, and he never replied. And that's the first time in 20 years he's never replied to me. And I figured, okay, I'm not part of this thing. And then they dropped the New York Times thing. And then I realized, that's probably what was going on. He's in this whole operation. And the only reason I got any contact was I was posting all this stuff on YouTube about the videos. I believe the videos have been altered. And so then that's when Eric Davis, his head scientist, who I've known for a number of years, came out and challenged me about leaving Pandolfi and I'm being scammed and all this kind of stuff. And I said, fine. So then I said, okay, here's my 20 questions I got for you. And then he said he would answer the questions, and he answered maybe half of them. And then I asked him the question about the picture that's when Mellon goes up in the news conference, the picture that's behind him on the screen. This is where the Tic Tac story comes from. Oh, it's a Tic Tac. And they show this picture. And I discovered that it had nothing to do with the Nimitz. It was from 2005 in the UK, and the analysis was it was a balloon. And they've got this photograph in the back. So I said, it was this part of the Tic Tac video you saw? And he didn't know what I was talking about at first. And then I guess he went and checked. And then he was kind of upset that this was like a nitpicking question, that I would bring up the fact that this picture behind Mellon was not a UFO. That they didn't have the Tic Tac. This is justification. It didn't have the Tic Tac video at the time. And so now he really, I guess he would answer questions, but he's not all that happy with me. And that's the thing is, so I'm not in their loop. I'm getting contacted by a lot of other people who are, I believe, trying to manage me. And that's where I said on the one Pandolfi thing, because I was sort of the expert on the Avery, they contacted me. They were doing this documentary on the Avery, and I was contacted. Ron set up the producer to contact me. And they offered me an in, and they said, you'll be in on what we're going to do, exactly what's going to happen. You're in on all the phone calls. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. I'd rather be a chess player than a chess piece. Because I know you get in there, and I don't belong to MUFON. I don't belong to any group. I don't belong to anybody's church or anybody's way of thinking. I just, as I said at the beginning of the show, I have 100 people on a list. and I listen to everything they say. And I sit there and I just listen and listen, and I try to listen to as many interviews from these people, as many postings as they make, and I try to put all the pieces together, because I don't really want to be sort of driven down some sort of thing where I've got to carry someone's flag. And that's where people are now trying to manage me through these leaks that I've got, with the White House course people and all this kind of stuff. Is they realize that I guess people are watching some of the stuff I'm saying, and so they're leaking me this kind of stuff, and you just sit back and listen, and half it's probably going to be fake and stuff like this, but that's all I can really do is realize that they're playing a game and I'm playing my game, and I'll play my game, and I'll watch the little chess pieces move around, and I will allow them to do whatever they want to do. I'm not going to judge them. They can do whatever they want to do, and they play it, and one of us is going to win.
Well, I think it's absolutely insulting to everyone out there who looks to the media, who looks to the other nightly show that takes part at this time as some sort of voice of reason for what is going on. And in essence, what you're saying in everything that you've said when it comes to the media side of everything, it's the public who is being played, and the public and the mainstream media, who are so naive to this topic, don't even realize it's happening to them. So it's going to be one of those things where we see that when they finally figure it out, it could be too late.
Again, they're not trying to get a story out. They're trying to, they are trying to get a story, but they're very carefully orchestrated story. It's not that because if they, again, and I have this at almost every one of my updates, I say this thing: if they're not disclosing, if they wanted to disclose, they'd stand the president up. They'd stand the CIA director. They know exactly how to get a clean story out. They could put a news release. They could show the bodies, the crafts, whatever. They could have it all over in 15 minutes. They're not disclosing, and they're not covering up, because they would just shut up like the Canadians, and nobody would know what they're doing. So they're doing something in between. They're not disclosing, and so that's what you have to remember, is it's not an ordinary thing where they need to get the story out. If they want to get the story out, they can do it in 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Question coming from Gail. She is asking, just what then is the big story that is being managed? What is the point of all of this?
Well, my impression is that what they've done, Bob Bigelow in an interview in 2013 said, "Are you in favor of disclosure?" He said no. He said, we need to have confirmation. So that's the story that they're doing right now. They're doing the confirmation. They're doing the 1947 story that they think that should have been done in 1947. They're trying to turn the clock back. So they're basically saying, listen carefully with the story that they put out so far. We've got these things. We don't know what they are. It's a big mystery. It could be a threat. We need to investigate this thing. There's no discussion of bodies. Everybody, you take a look at all those interviews. Nobody is allowed to talk about aliens. And Leslie Kean has been that for years. So we're not talking about aliens. We're just talking about unidentified aerial phenomena, whatever she calls them or whatever. And that's the whole thing. That's why they changed the word to this, AATIP, or the British term that they use, the UAPs or whatever, is they're trying to manage the thing. They don't want to use the word UFO because they're managing it. And so what the story is right now is confirmation. That's the story they're managing. And I think they were very successful at it. They changed the attitude of the American people, where suddenly everybody goes, oh, my God, it's for real. They actually had a program. And as I said, I pointed out, the government has not admitted that, but everybody thinks the government admitted that they released those videos and that they confirmed that this group existed, and that $22 million. Other than Reid mentioning it, there is no evidence. The government is denying. They are saying, we don't have any records. We don't know about this group. It's the same deal, but they have done this confirmation thing. Next, they're going to bring out the piece. That's what I've heard. They're going to bring out this piece. It's appearing in San Francisco in a couple of days near Lorien there. Jack Sarfati is running a group called the Cosmic Club. This group is meeting They are going to be discussing alien technology, and they are going to have a piece of the hardware. And this may be the layered piece. There's two different pieces I've heard about. One is a layered piece, almost like the arts parts that Linda Howe used to talk about, 36 or 38 levels, as thin as a hair, where they've layered all these different types of metals, and that it has special properties. That's one of the pieces I've heard. And the other one is from a crash site in New Mexico, where it's a honeycomb piece. I've heard it's a honeycomb type piece, very, very bizarre structure. One of those two pieces will be appearing at the Bohemian Grove. Sounds like it's going to be this week, this meeting. I'm not sure who's going, but it's the Cosmic Club. I heard there's 40 people. These are high-level academic people, scientists, people like Nolan would be on the group. Hal Puthoff, Jack Sarfati, all these people who are able to talk in private, because this place has 24/7 military security around it, and women have to leave the site at 9 o'clock at night, which kind of blew me away. And so they're running this whole thing. And on Thursday, I'll actually, because I know about this hardware stuff, it was actually my friend that took the NASA guy who found these pieces. And so Thursday, I get to handle, the guy's going to I have a meeting with a guy. He's going to bring the piece. I'm going to video it, and we're going to, play, show this sort of stuff. So these are the kind of things they're doing, and they really don't trust the public. They don't trust, they think, the rest of the UFO community is a bunch of wackos. We're the smart guys. We are the people who are going to figure this thing out. It's almost like the same thing that MUFON went down this road. Oh, we need academics. Or UFO Congress, I say, does this. Where if you got a PhD, you can say the stupidest things in the world. As long as you got a PhD and you stand on stage and talk about UFOs, we'll let you stand on stage and talk about UFOs. And then that's what these guys have, the same sort of thing, that you need a PhD, you got to be a smart guy, you got to be at a university. And so this Cosmic Club of 40 people has this meeting that's taking place this week. So they can't hide a lot of the stuff. A lot of the stuff leaks out. Lots of people are talking. And all I do is listen to these people, and I sort of tell everybody what everybody's doing.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
Hey, Grant, this Bohemian Club, are we talking about the one downtown in San Francisco, the actual club house in San Francisco? Are we talking in Bohemian Grove, which is up in Sebastopol?
Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove.
Okay, got it.
Military security around it, 24/7, and women have to leave the site at 9 o'clock at night, and they can't come back on the site till 7 o'clock in the morning. That's why I wrote you that email, and I said, where is there a place in California where women aren't allowed? I thought at first it was because there was an invite given to Maureen Seberg from Psychology Today. She's written for the New York Times and for all sorts of things. And she wanted to be a part of this. And Sarfati wrote her a letter and said, I don't know who you are, but you're not invited. And women aren't allowed on the site. That's why I wrote you the email and said, where is it in California? But it's a Bohemian Grove. And it's this sort of a secret, and it's not so secret anymore because there's emails all over the place about this meeting taking place. And I know because I saw Sarfati's comment to Maureen exactly what they're going to talk about. They're going to have this metal, and they're going to, now I'm not sure which piece of metal it is, and they're going to talk about alien technology, and there's people coming from all around the world for this thing.
Oh, my God. Well, what's interesting about this is back in the day, I used to know people that worked there because they have people that go in there that when there's nobody staying there that, are the housekeepers and the cooks and all that stuff. And those women stay there quite late. And I guess, but no women guest maybe after 9. But I heard no women at all, period. I've never heard after 9 o'clock, but whatever. I mean, it's just interesting to me that they said that. Oh, God.
There must be a lot of cigars and scotch.
Oh, there's a lot more than that.
Yeah,
the male prostitution bus pulls in about 9 o'clock.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I hate to tell you.
I'm all ears. I got a question from Eric, and Grant, we'll start off with you on this one. He is asking, what does President Trump know about what is going on?
Well, it depends who you listen to. If you listen to George Knapp and the To the Stars people, they say he knew nothing about this at all, and just bizarre, illogical stuff that they're putting out. They said that he did not know about the operation until 4 days after it happened, and that he saw it on Fox News. Total garbage, because, I mean, the rumor is he sits there and watches Fox News 8 hours a day, and it was on. And I actually, one of my updates, I actually show the story from Fox News on the very first day. So the idea that he sat there for 4 days and didn't know what was going on is nonsense. And the third day, this is this famous question, which I think is way more important. People don't realize the importance of this question. This Fabian guy, Jordan Fabian, asks from the Hill, asks the question to the press secretary. Does Donald Trump believe in UFOs, and is he going to refund the threat program? And Sanders says, well, I really didn't talk to the president about this, but I'll talk to him and I'll circle back around. And then after that, Fabian talks to her after the news conference, and she said, we expected this question might come up, but we never thought anybody would ask the question. We knew it was a subject, but we didn't think anybody would ever ask it. And so the question has not been answered yet. She has not come back and answered the question, which means they're still playing the same thing I always say. They're playing the plausible deniability. The president's an idiot. He doesn't know anything about Russia. He doesn't know about Iran-Contra. He doesn't know anything about UFOs. He's a total idiot. He doesn't, he can barely feed himself, and this kind of stuff to plausible deniability to protect the president. So because he has not come back and answered the question, what's the big deal? They don't want him in the mix. One of the messages that I got through somebody else from Ron Pandolfi was thank Donald Trump. And Morningstar got the same message. And I said it's probably from the same guy. And he said, yeah, it's probably the same guy. So he sort of confirmed it was coming from the same sort of thing. And this is already going back a year ago last December, no, it was January when it started. January the 6th, Robert Collins, who was the Condor, publishes on his Facebook site a message from Ron Pandolfi. And the message, he said, I just got a message from my good friend Ron Pandolfi at the CIA, who got me an interview at the CIA. And he said, you got to remember, this is like 2 weeks before Trump is sworn in. He said, President Trump is pro-disclosure and against disinformation. And I'll wait for a while before I do anything or something like that. This is Pandolfi's message. And so, of course, I started asking everybody. I asked Maccabee and all these people who knew Pandolfi, and nobody would talk. Nobody said they knew anything about what was Ron talking about. And then I went to Dan Smith, and I said, this message Ron put out to Robert Collins, do you know about this message? Oh, yeah, I've been posting about it for the last couple of months. So that's when I made this recontact with Dan Smith, who's very hard to deal with because he's into rhymes and riddles and eschatology and all this kind of stuff. But he basically, at that point, stated to me that Ron, this is December of 2016, that Ron was with Trump every single day and that he was briefing him on the UFO situation, and that Aliyah Pandolfi was brought in at one point to do part of the briefing, and that the two people that helped him do the briefing were James Wosley, who was the CIA director for Bill Clinton, who had a sighting with his wife, a daylight sighting in 1975, who's the guy who initiated the study that was done by the CIA in 1997, the white paper the CIA put out on UFOs that said it was all U2, all their SR-71. He was in on the briefing. And the third person that was identified by as this was going on in December by Dan Smith was a guy by the name of Mike Pillsbury. And so, of course, I looked up Mike Pillsbury, and I'm thinking, nah, he's got nothing to do with UFOs. He's a Chinese expert, and so was Ron. Ron was in on the Chinese technology stuff, and Wosley would have, as CIA director, would have known about Chinese. And I'm thinking, no, that's a Chinese briefing. They got this all mixed up. Ron's just screwing this thing around. And then, as I mentioned, in the last 2 weeks, I've suddenly started getting these high-level emails. Head of Jason, this deputy director in the White House, and the other person that's on there is Mike Pillsbury. I just about fell over and I saw his name. I go, wow, maybe this is actually true. Emails that I'm copied on that are all UFO emails, and Mike Pillsbury is one of the names. So all I have is what I'm told is that Trump was briefed, and that he wasn't interested in the subject, but as in one of my updates, I show a briefing. It was done by Hayden. Hayden talks about what it's like to do the presidential briefing when you do the black ops and the covert ops and all that kind of stuff. He says it's called a wake-up call. And the way he describes it is you go into the president and you say, okay, you're president-elect. I just want to let you know. We're the CIA. We do this. We do this. We do this. We bomb these guys. We do this. We do overthrow these. And he goes through the thing. And when Obama described getting this briefing, he said it happened in Chicago. He said, "Good thing there's bars on the window because I would have jumped out." And this is the thing. They tell him all this sort of stuff, and he calls it the wake-up call. And then he says, "And when you put your hand on the Bible at 12 noon, when you get sworn in, I just want to let you know, unless you tell us to stop, we're still going to be doing this and this and this and this." These things are done on behalf of the office of the president, not the president. It's not every time it changes. So these things are done from administration to administration. So what I think is the UFO thing is been going on. And the way I've written 3 books about this, and I say it's been going on since 1947. I can give all sorts of examples of the same sort of Tom DeLonge stuff they did years ago. And so they run these operations. And the last thing I heard was Trump was not interested, but you can continue to run. He was given Ron Pandolfi and this Rick Dearborn, who's the point man in the White House, were given the authorization to keep this gradual disclosure operation going. So that's all I know. People are saying, like Leslie Kane said, well, I know for a fact the president wasn't briefed. Well, how would you know the president wasn't briefed? I mean, the only person who knows whether the president was briefed or not is the president. I don't fall for that kind of stuff, that somebody knows what's happening in the president's head or who briefed. There's only one person who knows, and that's the president of the United States, and that would absolutely know whether the president was briefed.
Robert Salas, who was part of the 1967 nuclear site event where the UFOs flew over and shut down that base, stated a very profound diatribe, I'm going to call it, on his Facebook a couple of days ago after breaking down the interviews with Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff on the other show. And he took offense to Eric Davis calling UFO enthusiasts or researchers a bunch of tinfoil idiots, or pretty much along those lines. Nutcases is what he called ufologists, to be blunt. Is this what they are trying to do to discredit the UFO field? People such as yourself or Lorien, or even people who listen to this type of show?
No, but this is what I was saying before, is that this thing is the same thing with the media, is they see themselves as different than you and I. We're like wackos. You're just a small time, radio guy. They're the smart guys. They're the guys who are the PhDs. We are here to figure this thing out. We're the smart guys. That's like this thing with the Cosmic Club. It's all these sort of guys with PhDs and academics and stuff like that. And I didn't get an invite. I mean, so that's the thing, is I'm not in that league. And it's the same thing MUFON was doing and UFO Congress was doing, is there's different levels of researchers. There's the PhD smart guys, and then there's just the guys who are in it for hobby, and they're all off base, and they're a bunch of wacko guys. So it's sort of like the class structure inside the UFO community. And Eric Davis just sees himself as a sort of a higher level of researcher, and he let me in because he I guess he respected my presidential or UFO research. But when I started talking about this thing with Ron Pandolfi, then he said, I thought you would know better. I mean, Jacques Vallée talked about this. You're being led down this garden path, and you should just get back to studying your presidential UFO stuff. And so he's upset with me too. He really, is not, open to, being open with me or talking. And that's the whole thing. It's like I've sort of fallen into this category where I can't, see the forest for the trees. And that's the way they see it. It's almost I mean, I'm a Canadian. I see, and you're a Canadian, and we know, like, even in the United States, they figure United States figure like they're, special people. God's called them and stuff. And it's this sort of attitude in the UFO community that these people say, leave it to us. We're the smart guys. You just go on with your life and we'll figure this mystery out. So, and Eric is a smart guy. I mean, he's an astrophysicist. He's been for 13 years at the Institute for Advanced Studies. He's the top scientist. And so they worked on the program and stuff. And it's like, how dare you? Cause that's what I was doing, is I was questioning this sound in the back of the Nimitz. The one Nimitz video was appeared on this German site in 2007. And in my last update, I played it. So I said, here's the video from 2007 that was leaked, according to Eric Davis, by the Navy to this German site in 2007. Why they waited for 3 years to leak it is another question which they never answered. But they leak it, and it's completely quiet. And then when Tom DeLonge brings it out, it's got this stupid sound in the background. And Eric Davis says, oh, that was an open mic. It was a hot mic. The guy left his mic open. But then I played the second video, the video with the people talking. It's got the same noise in the background, and it's from 2015 off the East Coast. It's not even a Nimitz. It's 11 years later, and they both pilots 11 years apart left their mics on to create this stupid noise in the background. And that's what I say is the video is altered because you get past the classified. You can't release this video. That's what they do to documents. So what you do is you alter the document, you change a couple words, and you release it, and then you can say it's a hoax. It's not the real thing. And all you have to do is alter that video. It's the real video, but you alter it by putting sound in it or something, and then you can release the video because it's no longer the real video. It's a hoax video. It's been altered. And so Eric got upset with me, and that's fine. I mean, I can see where he's coming from, but it was sort of like, how can you, I thought you were smarter than this. How can you be falling for all this kind of stuff? And so they looked down on other researchers, as I guess most researchers figure. Like everybody in the UFO community figures they've got it figured out, that everybody else is the wrong guys, and we're the good guys, and everybody else is stupid, and we've got it figured out. And they're the same thing, but they have the power because they did have the money. They did work as subcontractors to Bigelow on this program, and they get a little upset when I come along and question, that they got taken, that this, these great physicists and astrophysicists, that they got scammed by this video. They get very upset when you and I and everybody else say, that they've been had on this thing. And I guess you can't blame them because you spend your whole life going and getting all this academic, spending all this money on stuff, and you get very upset. The same as when we questioned Ralph Blumenthal when we went back to him about the video that this video's got problems with it, and he was like, you talk about angry. He was absolutely furious. Do you think I'm stupid? And he was like, holy cow! And it's embarrassing to even answer this stupid question. And it's like, okay, And that's the thing is people figure they're the authorities, and how dare Dave and Lorien and Grant, who are just like part-time researchers or just people who are interested, come along and question what we're saying.
Go ahead, Lorien.
I just got to get in. I can't keep quiet. Grant, you're killing me. I have to sit on my hands because I'm Italian. I'm sitting here, just my arms are flailing. I swear to God. Anyhow, the whole thing with this is for me is that they're creating a divide in the community that I don't think is ever going to heal, because by them doing their disclosure, all the people that have seen a UFO or had alien encounters or had anything going on, as far as I can tell, they're just making us pissed off. I just don't even know how to describe it anymore. It's turning into this whole thing of they're the PhDs. They're so smart. They've got these videos. They're going to release this metal. They're going to have a big meeting about it. Oh, yeah. Whoa. Well, what about the aliens? They're covering this whole thing up. What about the Zendras? What about the portals? I mean, they're not even talking about that. And I think this is contrived just to try to, make us all look like a bunch of idiots, that they're the smart guys and they're in control.
But to me, it doesn't matter. The way I look at it is you come into this world and you're dealt a bunch of cards. This is one of the cards we're dealt. And it really doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong or what the heck they're doing. We have to play our cards. You and I have to do what we've got to do, and I'll let them do whatever they want to do. I don't really care. I'm not going to really, judge them or whatever. It's I'm going to play my cards, and I don't care what they say. They're not going to turn me away because it's just another card we've been dealt, and they may be totally wrong, but you and I still have to do what we have to do, and we have to plan what we're going to do, because in the end, you can't. I mean, I always tell the story. I mean, I'm a Newton guy who believes, that at the end of your life, you go, through the tunnel and you get the light, and then you get taken in front of a council between 3 and 12 people, and they ask you how to go. And you can't bring up the fact that hell put off with screwing people around, or your mother-in-law messed it up, or that the dog ate your homework. You can't. You can only answer for yourself. And that's, to me, is all I'm concerned about is what am I going to do? And it's upset them. I don't care if it upsets them, what I'm doing. That if you and I believe we're right, then we have to get that message out. We have to do what we came to this earth to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not necessarily about being right. In my opinion, it's about following the cosmic, spirituality of what being a human means on this planet. I mean, we're at a stage in 2018 now where people are having contact left and right. And this whole thing with Enrique that you and I are going to be talking, Enrique's going to be talking at the conference as well. Yeah. About the Zendras and about what Sixto Paz has been doing down in Peru, is it? And, these guys have been making contact. And where are they when it comes to these people? What about their portal? I mean, how come there isn't a whole thing on their agenda? And maybe it is, Grant, and maybe we're just not privy to it. Maybe this whole thing with Kit Green, maybe he's starting to pay attention to this, and maybe they're heading off in that direction. Or maybe, here's the kicker on this, and I've been thinking about this all night, maybe what they learned at Nid's Ranch explains everything the portals do and the Zendras do. And maybe they don't even need to worry about it because they know that it's such it's a limited hangout for the people who can vibrate at that frequency to make connection to other dimensions, that they don't even worry about that. All they're worried about now is just letting people know there's UFOs in the sky and doing it on their agenda. Yeah. So what are you thinking about this whole not even discussing the other aspect of contact in the disclosure?
Well, because that is what, as I identified, and if you listen to the interview that Bob Bigelow did in 2013, you got to remember, Bob Bigelow is running the show here. I mean, no matter what anybody says, he has all the data, he has all the material. And what he said, he was asked, are you in favor of disclosure? He said, no, we do not need disclosure. This is not what we need. This is going to cause a lot of trouble. What we need is confirmation. And disclosure will occur a number of years after confirmation. First, we have to tell people that this is for real. We got to move people to that point where they believe this is for real. This is actually going on. And then we can tell them about the alien bodies and the crafts later on. You can't drop all this. And that I'm not saying to defend him, but that's his position. And he's the guy that's basically, I think, calling a lot of the shots here because he has all the material. He's the contractor on the program and may still be the contractor on the program. And so that's what he's doing. But again, it still comes down to the fact that you and I believe in a reincarnation world. I believe that before we came in, we agreed to do something. And you and I, Lorien and Dave, we may have a meeting before we were born. And we said, okay, this is going to come up. These Tom DeLonge people are going to do this. Okay, and what are we going to do? And so that's all we have to figure out is what are we going to do? We can't change what they're going to do. They are going to ignore us. They are not going to pay attention to us. But we can control our own destiny, and that's all we can really do. So you and I and Dave have to figure out what did we agree to do before we came into this world, and are we doing it?
Absolutely. And you know what, Grant? The other part to this is all three of us have had different extraordinary experiences. And I find that just fascinating. I'm like on the angel end of it. You were doing the Charlie Red Star flying orbs. Dave's got Carl. I mean, we've all got some kind of experience that has propelled us into this as our lifelong pursuit. And you went after it for the presidents. And Dave's doing it by radio. I'm doing it by radio and putting on conferences. We all have our own way we're working this. But the bottom line is what we're doing it for is to inform people of the truth. And I think it's very telling that they've never said that, have they? That they're out to give us the truth.
Well, I think, but in the end, they're going to give us the truth. But I mean, they've got their way of doing it because they're doing a job. They're doing an operation, a government operation. They've been hired to move this story out, and it's the way they've always done it with Bill Moore, with all his Avery people. I mean, they were doing it back then. They did it with Kenneth Arnold's. Gave him the photographs and tried to assure him that these gun camera photos that they gave him, that his daughter now has, that these were for real. And Bob Emenegger being taken to the Pentagon and not signing in and being given the Holloman Air Force Base film. This is over and over and over again that they've sort of done this. And I will say that the way I sort of describe it now, I just hate this story, but because it's so popular and there's so many people now looking to me to sort of do this thing. I was working on the Zendras. I was 2/3 the way through the book. I said it was the most important story I had ever seen in ufology. And I basically stopped the book because I'm just overwhelmed with, as I said, I told you I could do an update every single day. There's so much material happening on this story because I'm watching all these people. And I sort of describe it. It's like an addiction, smoking, or like a bad marriage. I'm just going to do it one more day, and then I'm getting out of this damn thing. I'm looking for any opportunity to get out of this story, but I just keep getting sucked in more and more. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm supposed to be in this story. Maybe I'm supposed to do this. Maybe I'm supposed to sort of leave the Zendras now for now. But the Zendra is unbelievably 100 times more important than the story because it actually tells you what's going on. It talks about this whole consciousness aspect to the whole thing. And that's where I say that. But you see these guys all talking. John Alexander says it'll have to do with consciousness. Jim Semivan says this has to do with consciousness, multidimensionality. Eric Walker said, unless you understand about ESP, you will not be taken in. Ben Rich said, when asked, how do they get here? What do you know about ESP? The Canadian government in 1950 said mental phenomena was involved. They all know this thing. So it's down the road. But what they're doing is this gradual thing. First, we'll tell them the 1947 thing, that there's something, we're trying to figure out what it is, hang on, and that sort of stuff. And then we'll move to the next step, and we'll move to the next step, and we'll gradually. But if you listen to the Put-Off interview, it's kind of disappointing. Is now people, as they even said, they'll have to negotiate with Hal Put-Off, not with Bob Bigelow to get the material because he owns all the material. So before we were fighting the government with FOIAs and trying to figure out what the government's doing, now Bob Bigelow controls everything from 2007 on.
And there's no way we're going to get our hands on any of that stuff because Bob owns it.
Exactly. And then you can't FOIA and you can't force him to do anything. He basically controls the entire phenomena.
Yep. And I've known that Grant for a long time. When I was on a phone call with a good friend of mine, and he worked for Bigelow, and all he said to me, and it got me on the path of figuring this all out. He said to me, Lorien, I can't tell you a thing because I'm on a non-disclosure, and if I say anything, who knows what would happen to me, basically. And I thought, that's pretty harsh just for, the Nids Ranch and, other things he was doing with Bigelow. I thought, why would all of these guys that I know have said, oh, no, I wouldn't work for Bigelow because I'd never be able to keep quiet. I've talked to so many people that have mentioned his name back in 2010, 11, and 12, and they all said the same thing. They said, I can't tell you what I've done. And you wouldn't believe it if I told you. Pretty much. They inferred that. They never said it, but they certainly inferred it. And so my mind is racing, and I kept thinking, let's go backwards. From the moment that he got on, was it 2020 or 60 Minutes, and said, yeah, aliens are real, they're here, they're living among us, basically. The minute he said that, my brain went into overdrive, and I said, okay, he knows they're here. So let's work backwards. Let's work backwards to everything he's done and figure out how he knows this and what he's done to make it happen. And then I started thinking about all the people that I know that work for him. And then I started imagining how many other people work for him within, like I figured Kit Green was working for him. Yeah. And I figured all the guys in the aviary had to be working for him. I figured at least they had to be. And then I figured, well, they're all involved with everything that's Black Ops, so they all know what's going on, and Bigelow does too, and he's running the show. And I figured this out because of that interview on that TV show and what everybody has been saying to me for years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it should have been no mystery to anybody in the UFO field that Bigelow was the head honcho, and the president really didn't know as much as he did,
Yeah, and then the other thing you got to realize, and I'm not sure exactly, but the woman who did the CBS interview, if you look at the background of her husband, he's not an ordinary guy. So that may all be on a setup. I can't remember if it was his intelligence or his some sort of thing. So I'd have to go back and look. Somebody told me he's not just an ordinary guy. It almost made it look like that may have been a setup, that this was planned as part of this thing to set up what happened in October and in December. That he was basically dropping it. Same as in 2007, he tells George Knapp that basically he's got a new partner and this thing's. He's back in the UFO business again. And then in 2013, he says, I believe the government, there's elements in the government that want this confirmation thing to take place, and they're more open to releasing stuff. And if you listen to his interviews, you're going, oh my goodness, I never heard him say this before. And he said it, but nobody picked it up. Now, when you hear him do the interviews from before, a lot of what he says makes sense. That he was basically
absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing to me. It was like right there in plain sight the whole time. And I kept thinking, it's got to be him. It's got to be him. And when that 60 Minutes thing happened, then I knew it was him. But then I'm thinking I'm second guessing myself, because I'm like, well, why would they use Bigelow? But then I thought, well, Nid's Ranch was a pretty big find. And you know what my theory is now about Nid's Ranch? I don't know if I've shared this with you two, but I'm pretty sure now that, he says they sold it. They sold the ranch and he doesn't own it anymore. Well, my theory is that there is a government that owns it, some kind of Department of the Agriculture, or, somebody out there is owning this, and they're protecting it and using it as a training ground for their psychic soldiers and psychic warriors. Because if you've got portals...
Yeah. You hold on right there. I'm going to send us out on our second break of the night. Grant Cameron, Lorien Fenton. I'm not sure if we're saying goodnight to Grant or not just yet, because the break just came up. He usually is scheduled for 2 hours. We're going to see if he'll stick around for hour number 3. Up to him. Lorien will be back with me with more disclosure talk. Robert Bigelow, we'll get into it right after this on the mighty SOR. Stick around.
Hello, SOR listeners. Lorien Fenton here. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? For answers, join us at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Keynote speakers Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address the current disclosure agenda. Dave Scott, yes, you're Dave Scott, and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien encounters. Get your tickets at caufocon.com. That's caufocon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
And final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, the Paranormal Weirdo joins us once again. Yes, it's time for John Tenney, his first appearance of 2018. He comes on every second month. We talk everything from ghosts to strange things that are happening, UFOs, disclosure, everything going on at spacedoutradio.com, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us. We're also live on The Fringe FM. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Alamagoozlum. Alamagoozlum is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we're live on periscope.tv. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We are on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online, or watch some great videos from people like Tim Doyle and UFO Seekers and Leslie and Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. Unfortunately, Grant Cameron did have to leave. He has to pick up someone from the airport early in the morning, but Lorien Fenton is still with us tonight as we continue our discussion on disclosure. But before we get into disclosure, Lorien, I want to say on behalf of all Spaced Out Radio listeners, and I have had so many people message me from seeing your ad that I will be speaking at your 2018 UFO Con in San Francisco, California, March 23rd to 25th, and I have had so many people congratulate me on you choosing me to speak at your event. I am extremely humbled on behalf of our audience to be a part of this awesome, awesome event that you are putting on.
Oh, great. You can pay me the other $500 you owe me now for that. Just joking, folks. Just joking.
Wow.
No,
okay.
Are you kidding? Dave was one of the first people. Well, we were talking about the conference, and then he said to me, he goes, well, I'm an experiencer. And I thought, well, geez, yeah, he is an experiencer. What am I thinking, Because the problem we've got, Dave, you and I both know, we're both on radio, but the other parts of our whole thing gets just kind of trodden, under the rug because it's not out in the forefront because we do this. I do it 3 days a week. You do it 5 days a week. I mean, it's like, people... It just goes away from us, unless we're being interviewed. Like when you were interviewed on my radio show, we talked all about your experiences, and it was fabulous. And as soon as you said that, well, I'm an experiencer, I thought, well, God, yeah, he is. And then I said to you, you've got to do a PowerPoint. And you said, I will. So it was like, oh, my God. I was so happy you agreed to do it. Thank you.
Not a problem. It is a very big and fun event. I love doing these types of events. I haven't had a lot of experience with them, but I can tell you this. I am very much looking forward to getting in there. It's kind of, we've done a few conferences. We've done a couple with Forest Moon Paranormal, and we've also done one last year in Provincetown, Massachusetts. But this one, knowing the reputation that your conference has, is really a coming out party for all of us here at Spaced Out Radio. And what an honor. It really is an honor.
I really can't wait. And, Dave Cruz was with us last year and I know he's over on the Fringe now, but, he's still a Spaced Out Radio guy. And he was doing, all these interviews, and I'm sure that you got a few of them for your Spaced Out Radio listeners. And we just had a blast last year. I mean, and one of the things about my conference, if you don't mind, let's talk about that for a few minutes, and we'll
Absolutely.
hit disclosure up at the back end of the hour. But one of the things about my conference, I've been on my show ranting and raving about how angry I get. And you guys, it's in my nature to be Italian and kind of flip out about everything. And you know what? I'm never going to get cancer. And I'll tell you why. Because I've got my radio shows to vent and, and rant and rave. And after 20 minutes of doing that 3 days a week, I've been through therapy and I feel wonderful, But I was accused the other day of ranting too much about how my conference is the only conference people should go to and all that. But, the truth is the other conferences are really wonderful. I got to stop bashing them because there's nothing wrong with them. But what is right about mine is that it's small. I bring people in that nobody's really ever seen before. And I really try to get them to get up there and give a great presentation about their truth. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's where all the other conference producers who, by the way, come to my conference to get people for the next big conference. I mean, and Melinda was on my show. Melinda Leslie was on my show the other night. She goes, oh, yeah, the guys who produce Contact in the Desert, the guys who produce, Conscious Live, all these people show up at Lorien's conference every year, and they just walk in and they go, oh, that guy was amazing. Where'd you find him? And I'm like, I interviewed him on my radio show, and they're like, oh, great, and so they're like, yeah. And then these guys get propelled off into, stardom in the UFO community, which is, it's kind of a misnomer, isn't it, Dave? It's like, I don't know if it's stardom or, just like it's some kind of cultism, I think, after a while. But bottom line is I really try to bring people that have an amazing story to tell you guys, because what's happening, this is the other tangent I want to go off on too for just a second, is that there are so many experiences out there and so many of them are telling their stories now that it's like it's not really about the who's up on the stage talking. It's about that person's personal experience, that they're getting it off their chest, and that the people sitting in the audience who've had similar experiences can say, oh my God, I can relate to that, and it's a wonderful thing. People come up to me all the time and they say, oh my God, this is just so amazing. I didn't know people had those kind of experiences. Mine wasn't like that. I saw a UFO mine was extraordinary too. And what can I do to, tell people about it? And I let them come speak at my MUFON meetings. I mean, if anybody's got an amazing story to tell, hey, I'll put them on my radio. I'll take them to a MUFON meeting. Eventually they can speak at my conference if they want. I mean, I just don't have a problem with that. But you talk to all the other conference producers, and to a T, they will tell you, and they've looked me dead in the eye and said this, David, if they don't bring me in people, they don't sell tickets, I'm not going to have them. And it's really sad that it's turned into that. It's turned into an entertainment industry, and that's not what I'm about. So that's pretty much, in a nutshell, like I said, if you want to go to the big ones, that's great. If you want the entertainment value, that's great, because I can tell you this, you can't rely on people who have never seen a UFO, never had an alien encounter, or have been scientists in the business for a long time and never seen a UFO or never had an alien encounter to get up on a stage and tell you what you should know about the UFO field. It just irks me. I sit there and I look at these people and I go, who gave you the right to tell me, an experiencer, what's going to happen to me and what's happening to me? I said, they just don't have any right to me. I don't get it. Do you even understand how this happened? I'm still, I wonder every day, I go, how did this happen?
Could you do me a favor? And for our people listening, because I've been telling people for a couple weeks now that, if you need a holiday, this is a great weekend to come meet me, come meet, a lot of really cool speakers.
Grant, me, I mean, oh, God.
Let it fly. Let it fly.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to tell you about all the people that are coming to the conference and speaking this year. Well, of course, we've got Mr. Dave, and maybe Carl will come with him. We're hoping Carl will pack his bag and, kind of sit on the wing of the plane and fly down with him. That would be wonderful. And tell Carl he's invited, Dave. Yeah. Tell him to bring the whole family.
Don't worry about that. I am inviting Carl.
Wonderful. And Misha Johnston, which a lot of you may know from her radio shows, and she's also doing experiencer groups and Super Soldier and My Labs groups, and I don't know if she's been interviewed on the show yet or not, but she is truly one of the most amazing women I've ever known. And I got to tell you guys something about Misha. Misha was probably one of the worst. She is also a monarch, so she has been mind controlled. And she survived it, and she is truly an amazing survivor of the whole thing. We have come to the conclusion that Misha was probably right before Kathy O'Brien. She was one of the first models of monarch mind control in the United States. And, very interesting woman, but she got very involved. She's been having ET contact since childhood. She got very involved with the UFO community about 20 years ago, and then the threats started, and then the My Labs abduction started, and then they threatened her family and said they were going to kill them. And basically she left. She left the whole community. She wasn't seen for 15 years, and it was just very sad. But then I ran into her, and God, I can't remember how I ran into her, Melinda, and I started talking to them, and I said, you really ought to be doing more stuff. And then she got a radio show, and it snowballed back into her being in the community. And having done this, she has put together some stories of her past contact experiences, her past My Labs experiences, and put them together in amazing presentations. I do hope you guys really, you've never heard her name, but this woman will blow you away. She's also a certified hypnotherapist now, and she runs our ET experiencer groups, which we're going to have at the conference. And she is once you meet her, you guys will go, oh my God, and you will just be so happy to be her friend. She is truly a wonderful human being. And then, of course, there's Melinda Leslie, who's been a lifelong contactee as well. She has hybrid children. She's not as well known for that because she's gotten very much into the research around the aviary, the disclosure groups that are going on right now that are being exposed. And she also got into the My Labs abduction research because it was happening to her and Misha, and her a lot without Misha. And she just finally decided, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pursue this because nobody else is doing it, because it's not sexy. It's not pretty. It's not one of those things that everybody goes, oh, they're beautiful aliens. This is when the military takes you and puts a reptilian in front of your face, and the reptilian's trying to, mind control you and murder you, So, it's not fun stuff, but she's very honest about it. And she says, they can only go as far as your fear will let them. I think that's one of my favorite lines from Melinda, is that they'll only go as far as your fear will let them. So that's a very telling, statement right there. So, but she's going to be presenting on Disclosure. She's going to do, for the first time ever, Melinda is going to expose her 35 years of research with Randy Copain into the theoretical working group all the way up to Tom DeLonge's group. And she's going to precurse Grant Cameron, who's going to give us the day-by-day, day-by-day timeline from the day it happened all the way up to March 23rd. So it's going to be very interesting what he's pulled together, too. He's got some things, little nuggets that he's held back that he's going to show us in March, which is going to be very interesting. And Melinda's going to give you a history that'll blow your mind. I mean, her and I have been talking about it for 7 or 8 years now, and every time we start talking about it, I'm fascinated by what she knows and what Randy knows. So that's going to blow your mind. Okay, so we got that. Oh, and then Steve Bassett. God, I love Steve. You know, I've known Steve a long time too, and I tell you what, you guys, that guy is the most tenacious pit bull of a UFO researcher I've ever met in my entire life. And this guy, he gets up at 5 o'clock every morning. He's on the computer. He's working this. He's working that angle. He's trying to do this. He's trying to do that. The guy doesn't go to bed till 1 o'clock in the morning. I swear to God, he's lucky. He gets 4 hours of sleep. He does it 7 days a week. The man is relentless. And he's been to Russia. He's been to the UK this year. He's talked disclosure with people all over the world in the last, 6 or 8 months, I think it is. And then this whole thing with Tom DeLonge happened in December, and now he's on a tear. I mean, he is talking about stuff that I didn't even know he knew about. So this is really wonderful to have Bassett. And I see you're going to have him as a guest this week.
Yeah, we have him coming on Thursday, which is going to be very exciting because it's been a few months since we've had him on. So
he's got some new stuff. Wait, I mean, it's going to blow your mind. And by the time March rolls around, I'm sure he's going to have even more because he's now, he's buried deep in this, especially the Washington, D.C. crowd, the Podesta crowd, So this is going to be very cool. And he's our closing keynote speaker on Sunday evening. And let's see, who else is going to be there? Oh, Preston Dennett. Oh, my God, you guys. Now, here's a guy. I've known him for, about 10 years now myself. And this guy is quiet, amazingly polite, one of the most brilliant researchers I've ever met in my life. And for some weird reason, he and I were talking about this the other day. For some weird reason, everybody just glosses him over because he's not assertive. He's not out there saying, buy my books. And he's not on every radio show. And he doesn't do all that because he has a full-time job. He's busy. And he's written, God, what is it, Dave? 20 or 30 books now?
He just keeps popping them out.
They're just like, it's like he's having a baby, puppy litter every UFO puppy litter of books every 6 months, it seems. I mean, the guy is a phenom and brilliant. He remembers dates. This guy is just amazing. Now, the reason I think he's totally amazing too is I think he works in an accounting office and he does kind of what I do. And so I know that he's got that kind of mind. He can remember all these things because that's what he does for a living. And I'm telling you, that last book on alien healings of people, extraordinary book, really, really good. But he really wants to talk about his brand new one. I think this is the latest one. There could be another one since, but it's called Inside UFOs. And it's all these firsthand accounts of people's experiences inside of ships. And my favorite story that he tells in this experience, and there's much more detail in the book, and he's going to talk about even some more details he couldn't get in the book at the conference. But there's this one experience where a lady goes into a ship, and the thing is huge. And on the outside, it's only like 10 feet. But she gets inside, and it's like a football field. And she's trying to figure it all out, and she's having this whole communication with the aliens. So that's just one of the stories, and it goes into much detail, but I'm not going to tell you about it here on the radio because that would just, blow it for everybody. But, Preston has amazing stories, and he knows all these contactees that are just kind of like people that nobody knows about, and they're all down in the LA area, and whenever anything really bizarre or strange happens, they all go to Preston and say, oh my God, you would believe what happened? And he writes it all down meticulously and makes these amazing books. And the best thing about Preston is his sister. I don't know if very many people know this, but his sister is Kristen Dennett, and she is one of the most renowned UFO alien drawing people. What do they call that? Artist or a rendering artist or rendition artist?
Yes.
People would sit with her and say, this is what the alien looked like. And she does kind of like, those forensic guys do, and draws these aliens. And they're beautiful and they're amazing. And Kim Carlsberg at one point had a whole book of her drawings done up of people telling, what it looked like. And then she'd go ahead and draw them. And I mean, she's fabulous. And he's going to have, luckily enough, I talked him into this. He's going to bring up some CDs of his sister's artwork for sale. I mean, he's not going to charge an arm and a leg. And you guys have got to get these CDs. I mean, it's like having gold. He's given me a couple copies of these, and they're just amazing. The artwork is stunning. So I do hope you guys, at least if you're just there to, for one day, or you can only make it into town for a little while and you just come to one of the events, please try to see Preston and then go get one of his CDs, because, oh my God, it's stunning work. And let's see, who else is going to be there?
Well, you got Geraldine Orozco, who's going to be a guest on this show at the end of February.
Exactly. And I think,
Len Kasten.
Oh, Len. Oh, my God. Len's got a new book out. Yeah, I've known Len forever, too. He's spoken at several of my conferences already. Another unsung hero in the UFO community, meticulous research, amazing guy. Again, not aggressive and assertive like some of the other people. And his work is phenomenal. And his Serpo work was extraordinary. He is really done his work on that. Now, I can't say that Serpo is, absolutely true or whatever, but I've always told Len this. If it does turn out to be true, you are the go-to guy because you know everything about it. And I said, I hope to God it is true and that someday, you get the fame you deserve for all the work you did around it, because he really did. But he's not going to talk about that at the conference this year. He's going to talk about the reptilian agenda. He has been interviewing a lot of people that have been having some kind of scary reptilian things happen to them, and he's put them all in a book and come up with a hypothesis about what he feels that they're really up to. So, and it's not just his hypothesis, it's a hypothesis of everybody's stories, woven together to come up with what he thinks is going on. So I think it's going to be really cool. Now, I haven't seen this presentation, so I have no idea how it's going to be, but knowing Len, it's going to knock your socks off, and you're going to be walking out of there going, God, I hope a reptilian never comes and bothers me. I can hear it now. But, we have to face that fact that some people are having those type of encounters. So we're addressing that at the conference as well. And then Geraldine, she's brand new on the circuit, as they say, because she just started talking about her experiences because she just figured out she was having them. And she, again, is another person who's got hybrid children. And she started doing hypnotherapy and realized what was happening to her. She was always suspicious that something was going on, but she didn't know for sure. And then finally she started dealing with it, and she lives in the Bay Area, and I've known her for quite some time. And as a matter of fact, if it wasn't for Geraldine, we wouldn't be at the hotel we're at for having our conference, because she was the girl who was the salesperson of the hotel last year for the conference. So luckily she was there, and she said, "Oh, come and have your conference at my hotel." I said, "Okay, why not? An experiencer being the salesperson, I love it. I'll do it." So that's where we're at now, and it's really wonderful to have her speak. And you guys are going to love her when she's on the show. She's really articulate.
I believe she is listening right now. I know Melinda is. Melinda is in our Spreaker chat room right now.
Oh, God, Melinda. She
Yes.
is just, the fireball woman of the planet.
Fireball's a good word around here. Fireball is
just,
a good, I like the fireball.
Yeah, I love it. Okay.
Dennis is asking in the chat room, could you please break us into or give us a scoop on who Enrique Villanueva is?
Oh, God, I don't even know where to start, you guys. Oh, my God, I'm so enchanted by him. And it's not just that he is the most good-looking guy I've ever seen.
Ouch, ouch. I'm a guy.
Oh, I know, Dave,
Ouch,
I know.
ouch.
But you look like a little silver fox. You're just adorable, too.
Oh,
okay.
good save.
So, Yeah. So Enrique, oh my God. Now, I don't know where to start because Grant really has the scoop on him, and I'm going to have him introduce him at the conference because Grant has spent time with him, and Grant has actually been in a Zendra, which is, well, I don't think Grant went into the Zendra. No, Grant did not go into the Zendra. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Grant had an experience with Enrique, and I think I want them to tell you about it at the conference because it's kind of a convoluted, long story, but it really is important that people understand that Sixto Paz and the Peruvian and Mexican-American connection that's going on between Southern California and South America right now is really starting to take effect because what's happening is they're all doing these portal openings up at Mount Shasta in Northern California. So it's been very intriguing to see that they are bringing these groups and groups of people, like 125 people in 2013 opened a portal on Mount Shasta and went in, and they all saw an alien. Okay, but now here's the kicker on this, you guys. When they get into this other dimensional time space, what happens is they all see a different alien. It's so bizarre. And some of them see the same kind of alien, but some see an angel, some see, a reptilian, some see a gray, and, I don't know what they all are because Grant's got the scoop on that. But what I heard from Enrique is that, yes, everybody sees their own type of species. And I go, what do you mean by that, Enrique? And he said, well, we all come from somewhere, don't we? And I'm like, oh, God, yeah, right. So we're basically seeing our ancestors. So, and I thought that was intriguing because then, you think about the Cambodians, the North Vietnamese, the Chinese, all these people who, worship their ancestors. Maybe they're worshiping their alien ancestors. Gosh, it's very intriguing. But anyhow, these guys are making contact in a way that I would never have suspected. It's mind-boggling, and this guy has the scoop, and his story is phenomenal. He has had more contact in these Zendras or portals or different time spaces or different dimensions that anybody I've talked to ever. So this is just going to be amazing. He's just, I don't know what to say. I can't wait for his presentation. He gave an amazing presentation in Laughlin, Nevada. So this is going to blow you guys away, really, seriously. And when you get to meet him, you'll just be like, oh, my God, this guy's the real deal. See, this is the problem. I meet people like Enrique that nobody even knows who they are. And this guy is like a rock star in the UFO community in South America and Southern California because all the Spanish people just go, Spanish-speaking people just go, yeah, we all know who Enrique is, but everybody that doesn't speak Spanish or doesn't know about this stuff, or isn't paying attention, just goes along their merry way and they don't exist. And it's really, I don't know what to do about it. Well, I do know what to do about it. I bring them to the conference because we got to start getting it out there that this is going on, and we got to get more people to start making these Zendras appear because I don't think, I was telling Enrique this, I don't think this is a Spanish thing. I don't think this is a Peruvian thing. I think this is an everybody on the planet thing. I think we just haven't been taught like they were at Sixto Paz. I can't remember the name of the place, but if you guys go to the website, Enrique's bio is finally up on there. I got the English version of it the other day, but they've been doing this for a long time, and it's not anybody can do it. See, that's the whole point here. So I'm hoping that by exposing him a lot more through the conference that he starts getting, the recognition, and we can start building communities of people that can start making this kind of contact. And let me tell you something, Dave, if we've got 100 people on a weekend, on a Saturday night, going into a Zendra, making contact with aliens, and there's 250 people outside of the Zendra, and they see this happening because it's very visual, they can tell something's going on, and they come out and they all say, oh yeah, I talked to an alien, or whatever. What's this going to do to the Stars Academy, See, I think they're afraid of this happening. I think they're afraid of this organizing itself. I think they're afraid of this becoming a reality for all of the contactees, So,
well, I'm going to try and bring Carl down for that. Because
yeah,
I don't know if he'll show up or not, but every now and again he gives me a little zap that he's paying attention. So if you see me on Periscope looking around, I just got a little zap from him. So
you did? He didn't show up in the window, did he?
No, I've been looking out the window actually for about 5 minutes here, and just kind of looking around. Although the feeling seems to have disappeared. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we love Carl. We want him to show.
Might have been a quick hello. Hello.
Yeah, that's hi, Carl. Yeah, so Enrique, oh my God, you guys, Enrique is just going to blow your mind. If you can make it to the conference, he will just literally blow your mind. He blew my mind, and hey, blowing my mind is a very hard thing to do these days. So I was like in Laughlin, I was just sitting there with my mouth open, and Melinda was like, oh, this guy's really good. I'm like, yeah. This is like, it's a game changer is what it is. It's a total game changer,
And then in between everything, you got me slammed in there talking.
I know, and you haven't even told me what you're going to talk about yet.
Well, I am going to, because I want to be able to give my experiences. And I'm debating on whether it should just be about that or whether I should also turn it into the whole mainstream media issue.
No, I want your experiences.
All right. I'll keep it at that then.
Yeah. I mean, you can bring in the mainstream media too a little bit at the end if you'd like, but I mean, seriously, the people in California that are coming to the conference already and the people coming from other places, 3 of them have already told me, we want to hear Dave Scott's story. We want to, we want to hear what he has to say. They're fascinated. I told one of them that that came to my MUFON. No, I was at the San Jose MUFON meeting. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I was at the San Jose MUFON meeting talking about the conference. I mentioned you were going to be there. A couple people there listened to you. And they said, oh, God, we can't wait to hear about his experiences. And I said, well, I told him he had to do a PowerPoint, and they were all laughing. And they said, oh, good, we can't wait to see that. And I said, yeah. And then they were laughing. They said, is it going to be little stick figures? And I said, I don't think so. I said, I'm hoping somebody's going to help him do some drawing. So have you found anybody to help you?
You know what? I'm doing it on my own. And I've started developing a PowerPoint. I found my computer didn't even have a PowerPoint program. So I found a PowerPoint program on here. And I ended up, wanting to grab a picture of a ghost that I had on a USB stick.
Oh, cool.
I plug in the USB stick. I'm looking for this audio, or not this audio, this photo, because I had this photo from my old house of this ghost. Something, and it doesn't even look like a ghost. Honestly, it looks like an outline of Elmo.
What? Who's Elma?
Elmo from Sesame Street.
Oh, Elmo.
Yeah.
Who's Elmo?
It looked like with a red outline, so we called him Elmo.
Oh, that's a wonderful.
And you know what? The USB stick erased.
Oh no!
So I lost 2,800 pictures.
No! Oh my God!
From the day my son was born to special events of my daughters to everything. I lost it all. I am so pissed off about that right now. But no, I am going to be talking about my experiences. I'm going to, delve into a lot of the ET contact. And where I wanted to bring in the media at the end is, don't believe what the media tells you in regards to whether they're good or whether they're bad. Use your own experience. So that's the way I'm going to tie it in, but I am gathering pictures. I do have a picture of what that I found on Google that looks to be Carl, or looks like Carl did, minus a couple of features, so I'm going to be putting that in. And, I figured, you know what, it's only an hour. I know how to speak. I'm just going to bullet point everything and be able to just rattle off, because 60 minutes, it's a lot of time, but when you get rolling, it's not a lot of time.
It isn't. It really isn't. I wish I could give you tons more, and you'll be fine, because, the reality is, folks, when you got people like Dave and Geraldine and Preston and Preston's a contactee too. I mean, it goes, I don't have any speakers up on that stage except for Stephen Bassett, who is the first to admit he's not a contactee. But I think Stephen Bassett is probably going to get a pass for me, because he has never belittled a contactee. He has never taken their story lightly. He has respect for the people that have lived through the reptilian experiences, or even the gray experiences, or even the angel experiences like I do. He's never ridiculed me. And he's even said to me at different points, he goes, thank God you got your angels, because you've got that to rely on, and he's right. It's like, it's a very comforting thing for me. And, and not like the other guys. And, you guys, I harp on this, I say it all the time, but it's really important that you guys understand that the people that are the contactees are the people you should be listening to, because this whole Tom DeLonge thing, I'm going to go back to the disclosure. This whole Tom DeLonge disclosure thing, the PhD scientists who absolutely, Dave, absolutely believe they are above us in some way, shape, or form, are there. It's a scary proposition. It's kind of like the Nazis running the world is what it feels like to me. It's got this horrible, just like dread feeling behind it that there's something not right. As Sherlock Holmes used to say, the game's afoot. Something's going on. These guys aren't doing this to make us all happy and feel fuzzy and warm. And I can tell you that because after hearing what Hal Puthoff said on that interview the other night, and what Eric Davis, is it Eric Davis? Yeah, I think it is.
Yes.
What they said, there were so many innuendos. I mean, and I don't know if everybody caught this. I mean, Eric Davis has never hit it, but the way he flippantly said, "Oh yeah, I was working in South Korea and I was on this project, but I was also doing, intelligence work for the Office of Naval Intelligence." And I'm thinking to myself, well, geez, that's wonderful. So yeah, maybe that's why you got the job you got, not because you're the smartest, PhD on the block, I mean, it reeks of Men in Black, but they're all wearing white lab coats, So I just something's wrong with this picture, and I get that feeling when I go to a lot of the conferences. I'm like looking at who's on the stage, and I think to myself, God, this just doesn't feel right. Why is this person talking to all of us when the reality is he's never seen a UFO or had an alien encounter that he's ever admitted, and you think this would be the place you'd admit it, right? And they're not doing it. And I'm thinking, something's wrong. My body just says something is wrong. Danger Will Robinson. So that's why I harp on it so much. And I hope I'm not boring people to death with it, but you guys have got to wake up. I mean, I practically, Dave, you'd love this. At my MUFON meetings, I practically shake people. I walk by and I go, "You don't know?" And I'm like grabbing their shoulders like, "Wake up." I'm very passionate about this. And it's not because I produce conferences. If I didn't produce a conference, I'd probably be even more outspoken about it, because then I'd have no, as they say, skin in the game, and I wouldn't be promoting my own thing, and I don't, I try not to promote my stuff too much, but boy, lately I'm having to, because, you look at these big conferences and they sell tickets like wildfire, and I'm sitting around just, at the lonely old campfire over here, I get 2, maybe 5 ticket sales a week if I'm lucky, and and somebody's got to pay all the stuff for everybody to stay there. See, and that's the other thing. I can't blame people for not understanding how this all works. I wish it was free. I do. I wouldn't charge you guys a cent. As a matter of fact, I'd probably pay y'all to be there. But the deal is, you get into a hotel situation, and these guys are like highway robbers. They basically say, okay, you've got to have so many rooms. If everybody doesn't show up for these rooms, you got to pay for them all, even if they sit there empty. I mean, I don't know if you guys know that. You have to say, okay, I can fill 50 rooms, and if you don't fill those 50 rooms, if you only fill 30, too bad. You're paying for the other 20 nights, you know. And then you've got to pick the space you need, and they charge you an arm and a leg for the space. I mean, and then they say, well, if you buy a dinner, you know, that you have to charge everybody else $80 a head for, because if you don't get your $80 a head, then they're not going to give you the room for free. Okay. So, I mean, it's a racket. And, you know, every time I walk out the door, I've dropped close to, and I'm just going to throw a number out, folks, and it's the honest to God truth. It's anywhere between $12,000 and $15,000. And that's the cheap conference. That's the one that I barely get anything, and I barely get a space. But it covers everybody's rooms and the rooms we got to be in, and, you know, just the whole bit. Anyhow, long story short, if we don't make that money, I have to take out a loan. And then I'm paying off the loans for the next years. And this goes on, and it just keeps building up. So I don't know how much longer I can keep borrowing money to do this. And that's, you know, and it comes out of my pocket. I have no retirement. I have nothing. All I do is pray that someday, you know, people will be awake enough to say, oh my God, this is the best conference ever. I'll just buy a ticket. And if I don't show up, at least it's a donation, you know, you know, that type of thing. So, you know, it is what it is. And I just gotta relax around it and know that the truth will out, as our famous Fox Mulder said on the TV show, you know, because that's what it's all about, you guys. It's the truth. That's all I do all day long. It's all I do the minute I get home from work. I'm on the computer trying to get the truth out to everybody as best I can. And, you know, I'm not the most informed person on the planet, but I think I've got half a brain cell left, thank God, and I can still rub those. Well, I've got 2 brain cells left, because I can rub them together and make a conclusion about what is being presented to me, especially in this disclosure thing, because I'll tell you what, this Bob Bigelow thing has been bothering me since 2012 is when I figured it out, but I'd say about 2008 is when I really started noticing there was something going on with this guy. So,
you know what?
Yeah.
You know what? We're going to fire up the thought of the Dave here. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Hold on.
What's the thought of the Dave?
Well, the thought of the Dave is a question that I ask the audience every single day about the topics, about disclosure and everything like that. But because this has just gone in a huge experience, I want to spend the next 10 solid minutes, 11 minutes of what we have, and I want to go into Bob Bigelow. Because I know that, and from what I have been able to find out about him, I don't know if we're safe in this field with this gentleman. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go knock us all off or anything like that, but I do believe there is something extremely, extremely wrong with this man getting this much pull with the U.S. government, with black projects, and now buying up UFO sites and becoming almost a monopoly in this field. How did this happen?
That's a very good question. I think it happened because, and I'm going to go with Grant's view on this too, I think it happened because the government wanted plausible deniability about knowing anything at all. So you pawn it off to, a Department of Defense contractor, and you say, okay, this is your baby. That way, they did that with Skunk Works. They did that with the SR, whatever it was, SR 45. I don't remember all their numbers. But anyhow, I'm talking about all the black plane projects that they were working on, and jet projects and what have you. They all end up at Skunk Works because that way, or Jet Propulsion Labs, or, whatever, and they're all there. So when something happens, they can say, well, we didn't know that they were doing that, or we green-lighted it, but we didn't know that this is where they'd gotten to, or we didn't know, it's just all we didn't know. And they can use that with the President of the United States. They can use that in a court of law if it ever comes to ending up in a congressional hearing. They can say with a straight face, we did not know. And I think that's the bottom line here. They're all worried about covering their butt in case something really goes wrong. And that's the best way to do it. You send it off to, not Lawrence Livermore Lab, because they're still funded by government, but all of the labs are compromised. You can't take it there, because if it goes there again, you can't use plausible deniability for it. But if it's out of their hands, if it's out of government, functioning, if it doesn't have .gov after it, then they're safe. It's that simple. I really believe that.
But how did he get his hands on alien material? They have all of these brilliant scientists out at Area 51, at Wright-Patterson, at Dulce, at Dugway, and wherever else on this God's green earth. Pine Gap, Cold Lake, if you want to name a place in Canada. They have all of these areas with scientists, whether they're military or whether they're contractors. Why would they give a private contractor any type of alien material?
Okay, there's two plausible stories for this. First one is they all have it, okay? And he is just another one who has a piece of it, okay? Now remember, when you go to a crash site, I've heard that there's lots of little pieces. They're not just one, okay? Don't you think that there's one piece at Wright-Patterson, one piece at, the Pentagon, another down at, what is the one, Fort Dix, where they create all the viruses and stuff? And don't you think there's one there for them looking for any biological stuff on it? And don't you think there's one at Lawrence Livermore Lab or Berkeley Lab or Los Alamos or, somewhere else where they've developed atomic energy and they've got different devices that work with metals? And trust me, folks, Bob Bigelow doesn't own everything. He owns one piece of 20 pieces from one crash, and he got to buy one piece. And the reason he got to buy or own, or as a Department of Defense contractor got to have that piece, is because he can get regular guys that are not working for the government, that are scientists, to go in and do work on these pieces. And he just says to them, I need you to do this kind of analyzation and whatever. And he's got the money to buy the equipment to analyze this stuff. I don't think that half of our government facilities, and I may be wrong about this, I just don't think that they have the modern, very, very modern, very expensive equipment that Bob Bigelow can get his hands on. And I think that's one of the reasons that they contracted out to him, is he probably looked them dead in the eye and said, you don't have the ability to do what I can do. And I will give you all my findings. I will be on the Department of Defense contract, and you guys will get all the results, but I'm keeping the results too. And I think that's exactly what happened. That's just my guess, but it makes more sense than any other scenario that I've run through my brain cells. Those last two brain cells. Anyhow.
Where I have a lot of concern with him, okay, and maybe I shouldn't be concerned, but the journalistic red flag is going off. I need to get a red flag for the studio now that we're on Periscope.
Oh, then you can just
wave it.
Start waving it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But with Bigelow and his financial endeavors into buying people's experiences, it really, really hit me hard. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm Canadian and I'm an experiencer. But when I found out about 3-4 weeks ago that he bought Brian Vike's, Northern UFO research, and Bass is now running that bothered me, because I don't like the idea, and Canadians being so naive, I don't like the idea of an American black ops person having Canadian personal information. Because when you fill out one of these applications, or not applications, but one of these forms for what happened. You're giving your name, your address, your phone number, your work phone number, your cell phone, your emails, your sometimes birthday, okay, so they could track your age. And now I'm thinking, why have, we've had Canadians on this show, Lorien, who have said they've had CIA show up at their doors. They're MyLab people. They are having black helicopters or men in black show up. And it didn't make sense to me why it would happen in Canada if this was a U.S. program. But when I hear now that Bigelow, and I'm being hypothetical here, where Bigelow is grabbing that information, we don't know if he is turning that information over to the U.S. government. He can say that he's not, but how do we know? Because I don't like the idea of Canadian information getting into the hands of people who are involved in black ops programs with the United States government.
Well, here's a little tidbit of information for everybody. The Canadian government has a deal with our CIA down here in America that they can just about run roughshod over their country. And I know this because of somebody I actually was talking to on the phone at the late hours last night. And we were talking about this exact thing. And what has happened is the CIA in America is training a lot of your clandestine kind of, I don't know, what is your CIA up there? What
it's
are they
called?
CSIS.
CSIS.
Okay.
CSIS.
Okay. They do a lot. Our government does tons of training with you guys, and we're teaching you guys how to be as ruthless as we are down here, which scares the bejesus out of me. But it's a done deal. It was put in play with some kind of, agreement between the CIA down here and your CIA. And it was done about, where did I read that there was something between the two of them? I want to say 2010, somewhere around there, 8 or 10, something. But if you really want to do your homework, look up where there's something. I can't remember even where I found it now because we couldn't remember last night when we were trying to recall it either. But there was some kind of thing where there was a joint training thing that went on for a summer between our CIA and your CIA, and then they decided to extend it indefinitely. Okay? So there you go. I mean, I don't know why they're sharing their information as well as they are, or as much as they are. But I think once they started working together, I think the RCI realized that there was a plethora of information around the UFO stuff and around terrorism. See, terrorism is what it really started out to be. But I think as they started digging into what was going on up there and what these guys had files on, they probably thought, oh, my God, UFOs too. Oh, cool. Well, we'll go down that road with them as well. So they may be training them in how to be men in black and start doing this thing. Now, were the people that had these CIA people show up at their homes, did they know whether they were American or Canadian guys?
The person who had the CIA said that the lady who showed up at his door was American.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, did he have an extraordinary experience?
Well, it's our Keith Andrews, who comes on the first Friday of every month here.
Wow. I don't know what his experience.
He's a lifelong experiencer. He has been in contact with numerous different species. He's a very interesting dude. Very interesting dude. Yes.
Well, then see, that makes a lot of sense to me because when she went to see him, did she warn him off or did she ask him to participate with them in some kind of study?
I'd have to get the story again. He will be on Friday. And,
cool.
And you know what? If you're free on Friday, I'd love for you to come on with us.
Oh, I'd love to for a few minutes. Yeah, you know.
And you can ask him that. But,
I'll interrogate him.
Yeah, but I do know
I'll
that
practice my Men in Black skills.
I do know, Lorien, that he did tell her you're an American official, and I really don't need to talk to you in Canada.
Well, good for him. That's what he should have said. But, you know, like I said, this thing's been going on for a while now, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. And it's really benefiting the American CIA. I think they're getting a lot more out of Canada than they're getting in training. You understand? You understand what I'm saying here? I think we're mopping up your UFO field. And just to get back to Bigelow for a minute, because I don't know how much time is left in the show. But when he was working with MUFON and doing the same thing he was doing with the government, he had control of the STAR team. And this is something everybody doesn't talk about. They all talk about the money he paid to MUFON for their records and their files and the whole bit, just like he bought up your guy in Canada's files. I mean, he buys everybody's files. If they'll sell them to him, he'll take them. And he'll put an open invitation out to them that if you get more information, I'll buy it in the future, you know?
Exactly.
Or he'll say, you got to shut down, and this is the last you can do this, and I'm going to own it, and there's no, disclosure going on here.
Right.
You know?
Just so you know, Lorien and Melinda, I will hit you up on Facebook and get you Keith's information. I'll bring him into that conversation and set that up for you. Lorien, I want to say thank you so much for being on the show with Grant Cameron tonight. What a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for having me, and I hope that everybody that was listening, I really do hope you come down and see Dave speak in San Francisco. It's going to be a gas. We're going to have fun. You know, that's the other great thing about my conference. We all have fun. We really do. And we're up for 3 days, but we still have a blast.
Well, I look forward to it. I look forward to it. We will talk to you very soon. I'm going to get you to hold on while I wrap this thing up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Yes, the guitar god right here at SOR headquarters. Tomorrow night on the program, John Tenney joins us, as John will be talking all things paranormal, strange, weird, ufological. We'll get into it all tomorrow night with the paranormal weirdo himself, self-described. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. I want to say a big thank you to everyone listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Special thank you to everyone participating on Periscope for watching this show live, on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, in the Spreaker chat room, and the veterans in the SOR Space Travelers Club. You make it so much fun, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.